This week's episode is brought to you by Blue Harvest Vintage. Are you a collector? Blue Harvest love to help you find that missing piece you need to complete your collection. They have extensive stock of vintage Star Wars vehicles and mint-on-card action figures, as well as new The Force Awakens and Black Series items. Blue Harvest have Funko Pops, Lego, Dinky, Corgi, Matchbox and more. Everything a collector could possibly need. If they don't stock it, then let them know, and their knowledgeable staff will be only too pleased to help. Head to Morley Market in Leeds to see the life-size Darth Vader. Alternatively, reach out to Blue Harvest on Twitter at Blue Harvest UK, Facebook, Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles, a website, blueharvestvintage.co.uk, or email at blueharvesttoys@gmail.com.
This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 39 of Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
Who's next? It throws the order out. Normally it's Steve.
Yeah, you can't be trusted even when he's not here, can he? Completely useless.
He's got the night off and he's still derailing the show. Rob, you go first.
He's Rob.
I'm Rob.
And it's good night from him. And I'm Paul. Sorry. Yes.
There
Wonderful.
we go.
No, that's good. That's good. I was really disappointed when I wasn't on last week, and you guys had a delightful shambles at the beginning, and I was sorry I missed it.
When you weren't in part of our shambles, actually.
I was.
I seem to remember crediting you with bringing order to the podcast. I said, when you're not here, it all goes to pot, and then all of a sudden.
Well, again, we didn't discuss the
it wasn't because of Rob. It was the anti-Steve effect. So Steve still managed to screw it up.
Yeah, this is it.
I
think that's only fair.
It's the lack of naked, I think, that's doing it.
Yeah,
that's it.
We're all too
clothed.
I'm not on the camera anyway, so you're fine.
Okay, we're back, episode 39. Big fat show this week. Big fat show. But first, Rob.
Yes.
As you just alluded to, you're off last week. How was that, mate?
I was, yes. It was lovely, thank you. Yes, we had a lovely week. Yeah, we did. We went to Yeovil for the first few days and Norfolk for the rest of the week.
Oh, nice.
We did a lot of driving. There were a few there.
Driving around and camping, or?
No, we had a hotel in Yeovil, which was a present from Jen's mum. And then we had her parents got a caravan in Norfolk, so we stayed there. Sort of nice. out kind of near, well, not far from Norwich, but
It'll do.
Direction. Yeah, I really love Norwich. On the subject, actually, you remember I mentioned a few weeks back that I remembered a story about Hitler and Norwich.
Yeah.
I said, but no. Well, no. Hear me out, Paul. I said on the show that Hitler was such a big fan of the architecture of Norwich Cathedral that had he won Second World War, he would have done his victory speech from there. I was half right. It was Norwich City Hall.
Right.
It was Norwich. Supposedly, had he won World War II, his victory speech would have been delivered from Norwich City Hall because he was such a big fan.
So we could have had Hitler. We ended up with Delia Smith. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah, and Stephen Fry. So I think we did well. To be honest.
That wasn't a bad deal.
Deal. I like me some Delia, and who doesn't like Stephen Fry?
Oh, darling, absolutely.
Right. So everything's good then, gentlemen.
Yeah, sounds.
Everyone's well. No Steve this week. We should point out he has got important things to do, but hopefully we'll get him back next week. Let's jump straight into our announcement section then, shall we? Because this one's a little bit larger than it is usually. Our dear friend and long-time supporter, Ads Hillier, has stepped it up a notch this week. So he's become a TSW sponsor this week as well as a VIP. And I got a message from him earlier. He got his first VIP email through today.
Nice. That's awesome.
So, thanks to Ads, and I'm going to be a bit cryptic here because I don't want to give too many details because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. He's been a little bit under the weather, so we just wanted to say speedy recovery to Ads.
Yes, indeed. And on the note of Ads, actually, I want to give him an extra thanks, which isn't on the notes, because he offered to send me a rap to so I could banter with the guys at Tumbling Saber.
Yes,
but, as grateful as I am, Ads, I've actually started writing my own.
Oh, well, there you go. Did you see he actually said he'd sent a review in?
Right.
And he'd sent a copy of the notes for the review, and that was largely rap, and it would have had to have been read by you.
I think that's only fair.
But
would you have had to give me a beat?
I'd have dropped the beat, But fortunately, I managed to spare myself that embarrassment because his review hasn't gone through iTunes yet.
What a shame!
We both dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
But now I've committed it to tape. So what are we going to do?
Well, there you go.
Anyway, thank you, Ads.
Yes, thank you. Mate.
Jump in the back to tank.
Get well soon,
sir.
Indeed. All right, Facebook. Last week we had no activity. This week we have all the activity.
All the activity. All the likes in the world.
All of them. Well, 4. So
4 of them.
We've picked up 4 new Facebook friends.
4.
Kate Moran, James Swanson, Steve Lewis.
Moran.
And, it could be Moran.
Could be Moran.
Steve Lewis and Mario Margini.
Welcome.
They all like the page, so welcome. Kate is an old friend.
Oh, Kate.
Oh, okay.
Kate, yeah.
Yes.
Kate's a friend of mine from LA who works at Disney. She's a really active blogger and podcaster herself.
Hang on. That name does ring a bell.
Yeah?
Oh, what was the mystery podcast?
Parageekology.
Yes. That was her, right?
That's her, yeah. That's Kate.
I thought so.
So she just popped up. I don't know how she found us. So I guess probably through my Facebook page, my personal Facebook account, I would imagine. She'd seen something on there from Talk Star Wars and just became very active on all our social networks. Mm-hmm. So it's good to have her back on board. I really like Kate. I did some graphic design for their podcast, actually. So if you go looking for Parageekology, I did that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, hopefully season 2 of that show will kick off soon because I really enjoyed that.
Cool. Nice.
Also, YouTube's picked up a few people. Another name you'll recognise here, Paul. Ashley Bennett.
Yes.
Jared Beldner, Benji1701D, which I think is a
Star Trek
reference. Yep. And D.VA Goodness, subscribe to our YouTube channel today.
That would be Diva Goodness.
Diva
Goodness.
I reckon so, yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I think that's,
so they will
if not,
all
it's a good
subscribe to
name.
YouTube.
Use it.
Yeah, I might claim it as my own.
Not you.
Ashley was the host of the all too short Movie Geeks Film News YouTube edition.
Ah, okay.
She made a movie, didn't she?
She made a movie, Called Twisted.
That's the one. Part 1, I understand.
Again, these names ring bells. I'm starting to think I might have seen them pop up on. Are they on Twitter, maybe?
Twitter, yeah. You probably saw a lot of activity when we were doing Movie Geeks Film News on my Facebook account. I was sharing this.
Yeah, that sounds plausible. Yeah.
So thank you guys for subscribing to the YouTube channel. We're still not quite there yet, but I'm sure we'll get to the required amount soon enough so I can get that vanity URL plugged in.
Spread the word.
Indeed, please do. Right. You heard at the top of the show before we started, professionally recorded by Mr. Rob, sponsorship intro.
Thank you, darling.
So I just need to mention that Blue Harvest Vintage UK do offer a 10% discount on everything that you purchase in their store if you mention Talk Star Wars. So either get down there or reach out to them through one of their aforementioned social network links and see what you can pick up there. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, there's and like I've said before, 10% is no small chunk when you're talking about collectibles.
No, it's significant,
especially that's a good old discount. That
the mint on card stuff that starts to really add up.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, Marc sent me Marc, who runs Blue Harvest, sent me a photo. He had some Talk Star Wars sponsored by Blue Harvest t-shirts done, and in the background are all these delicious toy boxes. Oh, just a slice of my childhood right there. It was.
Well, tone was a little worrying.
I love when I go in shops and I see boxes. I just seeing kind of non-branded delivery boxes just kind of make me a little bit, that good kind of wary. Like, what's that?
Yeah,
there's a mystery to it. Obviously, unboxing as much stuff as I do on YouTube channels, I do like a bit of mystery. So that's probably where it comes from.
Right. Just a final bit before we move on from the announcement session. Just a final bit on what's been going on around TSW.
I like this bit a lot.
So I've been working pretty hard to pull in some decent partners for the website. So since we last recorded, I'm thrilled to be able to announce that we finally landed Her Universe.
Nice.
Ashley Eckstein's company producing really high-end Star Wars branded apparel for ladies. So
nice.
Some quality stuff in there. Pride of place on the homepage. Also in there now is Supply Pod, which is a subscription box, and this month's is all about Doctor Who and time travel, which I thought was quite fitting considering Paul and I discussed that last week.
Yeah, we wrote that too.
We wrote that. We've also we've got a couple of other interesting partners on there as well. Fun.com, Sideshow Collectibles. I'm personally quite thrilled at because I love the stuff that they kick out.
Some of their stuff is stunning.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
I've had a quick look. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit too broke at the moment to, not broke, but broke enough.
I suspect I'll always be too broke to afford anything from Sideshow Collectibles, but I can cover it from a distance. Not completely broke, but broke enough. And the other thing I just want to mention before we go any further is the podcast network.
Yes.
So something that I had in mind on our previous venture, Paul, when we were doing Movie Geeks Film News, was that one day that might become a podcast network that we could have like an umbrella over several little shows. I mean, we were producing enough podcasts at the time between Bagged and Boarded and 8-Bit Cinema and the main Movie Geeks Filmcast. Well, we've decided now to get together with some other Star Wars podcasts, Generation X-Wing, and our dear friends at Tumbling Saber, and
those guys
form an alliance, if you like, of not so rebellious Star Wars podcasters. So we'll all be under one roof, cross promoting and spurring each other on. The application is in with iTunes. Hopefully we'll get the thumbs up soon enough, but keep your eye on that. It's called Star Wars Commonwealth, and we'll all be pushing one another's work. So watch this space for more.
Indeed. Very exciting stuff. I've been keen to, in current projects and side projects and so on, it's nice to have a group of people kind of, helping each other out and pushing towards a common goal.
Yeah, it is good.
It's nice.
It's nice to have people sort of helping you raise the bar. And
exactly.
And I know
plus, you pick up good habits and stuff as well, don't you? From other people.
Absolutely. It's so nice to to just get a hit off of that passion as well. And they're all such lovely, lovely guys.
Oh, they really are. Like we're having chats with them behind the scenes and stuff, and they're very, very lovely chaps. So we knew Tumbling Saber were, but having spoken to the guys at Generation X-Wing, they're really good guys as well. So I'm very pleased that we're getting involved with helping each other out.
Yeah, there's always one thing that stands out to me for whatever reason, and on Generation X-Wing, it's when they're name checking the hosts and you get to Rob, he says something about pork chop sandwiches in a way that just reduces me to tears every time I hear it. It's just this little tone in his voice that just tickles me pink. So I really enjoy that. So anyway, that's the Star Wars Commonwealth. Hopefully you'll be hearing a hell of a lot more about that soon. Right, should we get to some listener comms then? No reviews this week. No one's taken us up on our Ron Burgundy review challenge. So if you're not completely familiar with what that is, what I've said is leave a review in iTunes. Write whatever you want. I will read it the way Ron Burgundy reads his auto-prompter, as long as it's not full of profanity and it's not full of hate.
Like I said, I don't think you need to worry about that, Mark. I still maintain that we're good. I think the fact that we have to wait so long for the reviews to come through after people have said they've sent them is proof that there's some sort of vetting going on.
Indeed, yeah.
Not as much as YouTube's recently, but
all right, okay. Yeah. More on that later.
Yeah.
Right, listener comms. Rob, did you want to take this in as this is from a Rob?
Yeah, sure. Right, so this is from Rob at the aforementioned newly Commonwealth Generation X-Wing. So it reads, "Hey boys, as usual, I'm really enjoying the show. I have a confession of sorts. I've watched Force Awakens recently, and I'm starting to rework my rankings of my Star Wars films." That's interesting he says that. "I'm starting to feel that I enjoy The Phantom Menace more than Force Awakens. Now, before I get... Wow, okay. Oh, you're right.
Yes, sorry.
Now, before I get booted out of the Commonwealth, hear me out. There are so many new aliens and characters that are really cool. Ithano and Guavian soldiers being a personal favourite of mine. But where are the Rhodians, the Trandosians, the Dugs, the Duros, the Malastarians? In a universe that some people complain may get too small, everyone seemingly related to everyone, we barely see any of the old and so much of the new. We're given a couple of old school boys like Nien Numb and Akbar, but that's it. What Phantom Menace brought to me was a correct connection, to the original films. They maintained that old school feel and still brought in new elements. Story and dialogue aside, the feeling I had when I watched Phantom Menace is still quite magical. I feel more connected to my youth. Force Awakens was great and fun, but it feels removed slightly. I bring this up because with the new Rogue One movie coming out, I'm curious if they will have a stronger connection to the original trilogy, with elements like Bail, Mothma, Mon Calamarians, Vader, Stormtroopers, Yavin, etc. I feel this movie will be more Star Wars than Force Awakens. They do have the luxury of being plopped in between the storyline, but I'll be very curious to see how this turns out. How strong will the connection to the Force be? What original characters or species will we see? Will we see the appearance of everyone's favourite astromech? Just a few thoughts, curious to hear what you think. All the best, Rob, Generation X-Wing podcast. Long live the Star Wars Commonwealth. And how right he is.
Indeed.
That's an awesome post.
Yeah,
seriously.
Awesome question. So I'll break that one down.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel that The Force Awakens seems less Star Wars-y than Episode 1?
I personally don't.
No.
I can see what Rob means about the lack of traditional alien characters. I would have loved to have seen Rhodians in there because I really dig Greedo. So I see what he means, and it threw me off balance. I think the first couple of times I watched it, thinking, well, I don't recognise any of these species. Not even in Maz's Bar, you'd think there'd be some of the old familiar faces in there.
That is interesting you say that, because I was kind of struck by, we've never seen any of those like aliens before, and it did seem a bit, that's the place if you're going to stick in fan service. That's a good no-brainer one.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
There was a couple of Ralph McQuarrie concept designs in there, like the Wolfman. So there was a trio of Wolfmen type things, and they were all from the original Ralph McQuarrie concept pieces. But yeah, I don't think Force Awakens to me doesn't feel any less Star Wars because of it, but I definitely noticed the absence of those characters.
Yeah. What about you, Paul?
I didn't really pay much heed to it because I was actually prepared for a new era. I mean, I had my arguments at the time enormously that it was too much of a revisit from a dialogue and a storytelling basis to A&H sort of thing.
Yeah.
But from the point of view of atmosphere, I was actually quite pleased with the pace and the atmosphere moving forward. And I didn't really want to revisit old things, to be honest. So,
okay.
That said, pointing that question, when the way points that out with the rewind back to Phantom Menace, it's a very valid point. And, the connection with, all the species that you could cross-reference. Really valid sort of thing. I mean, the pod race. I actually find myself on the pod race looking around far more than I care about the actual race itself. It's like, oh look over there, and who's behind there, and so on and so forth. Which I actually find much more fun. I didn't actually care about the pods eventually.
Do you think it's partly down to the fact that Lucas wrote all 6 of the original saga, and possibly. This is written by somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but it could also be...
Certainly from a direction point of view.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
What everyone else has picked up on, though, Rob, is that this film, The Force Awakens, was so close to A New Hope. Perhaps it was perhaps it was a deliberate, measured effort to try and take one step away aesthetically from A New Hope, so that you couldn't just say, well, hang on, this is exactly the same film. Look, there's Greedo,
I can totally see that argument. I've made that point before about, how it's very similar in tone, and it has to be deliberate, because you don't put that many things so close together without meaning to, I think, because you'd be conscious to avoid it if you were trying to. So I think it's a deliberate thing to kind of get people nostalgic in the same way that they would have done about, he had a difficult
I don't think there's any denying that. Absolutely.
No, he had an incredibly difficult job. He had to resurrect a franchise that hadn't done anything for 10 years in terms of movies, and he also had to get people excited by the first movie, which they hadn't had for nearly 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because when the prequels came along, I mean, let's be honest, most people were dead excited, and then we sort of slid down this slide of...
I was really happy.
Crying out loud. Oh, really?
I suppose I was 15. Yeah, that's me, yeah. I was, because I'm the prequel defender on this show. in comparison. You know, I don't think you guys hate them, but
no,
I'm certainly more of an evangelist than most.
Hate's a very, very strong word.
Sure.
I can't think of the word for how I would describe Phantom Menace, to be honest.
Disappointing?
Yeah, that's all. There's nothing more than that. And to be honest, it was... they didn't do enough with Anakin, frankly.
Okay.
I wanted to see... I actually wanted to see a little bit of early, not so much anger, but sinister. I wanted to see a little bit of sinister creeping around. He was completely and utterly innocent for such a long time. I was like,
no, that was a deliberate thing. It was, Lucas saying this is how easily it can be.
I'd like
can
the
go
idea
down the
of the dark side to have to be able to hook into something just a little bit. Would have been nice, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
he does say slime ball once, doesn't he?
True. I think he's a bit too young. I think Slimo. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, slow down.
I think he's all right, kiddo. Past your bedtime. I take your point. I think the problem with that would have been the youth of Anakin in the film. If he'd been a few years older, he was
very young, very young. Yeah.
Especially as obviously he's supposed to be 8 years old or something in Phantom Menace. So he's supposed to be innocent in comparison to how he's going to grow up anyway, because obviously teenage hormones do a lot for kids.
I got to be honest though, my biggest bugbear with the film period has always been Liam. I was devastated, but there you go.
What with what happens to him?
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn was an absolute killer.
Really, I would tell you a bit of fun about that. Did you check out the soundtrack?
Yeah. That's a famous
episode
misstep.
7. Yeah, episode 7. Are you familiar with this one, Paul? You're a music man.
Of 7.
Episode 7. Episode 7 soundtrack before it was released had track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, and the reason was when Phantom Menace went into the iTunes store, the track names were there before the film came out. So there was a track called Qui-Gon's Funeral.
Qui-Gon's Noble End.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one.
Didn't make me any less angry though.
No, sure, but it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
On the subject of spoilers, actually, I don't know if we're covering it later on in the news.
Space
Rogue One.
Load.
Yeah, no, we're not covering it as such. Did you see the Rogues One or whatever it was on the Star Wars channel, the one made of toys?
Yes.
The machinima, is it called, when like the robot chicken style they did with toys?
Right. Okay.
Did you get a sense that that at any point they could have been giving away plot points?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I was watching it and going, hang on a minute, this might be the plot.
I did hear that they're going to enlarge Ben Mendelsohn's head so that he's the same dimensions as that Funko Pop in that little animated video.
Oh, that is a day one purchase for me, that Funko Pop. Amazing. Plus, if I get 2, I can make my own Thrawn before he comes out.
There is true.
There is
one. There's a big Rogue One spoiler coming up later.
Ooh, okay. Hang on.
I mean,
where is it?
Epic. Anyway, we've got another piece on Rob's question, haven't we? Don't read too far ahead, Mr. Wade.
Sorry. Okay. Yes. So, so we've talked a bit about where were the classic aliens in Episode 7.
Yeah.
And the question is, will we see R2-D2 in Rogue One?
Yes, definitely, absolutely.
I think last
that's imperative at least at the end
scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was thinking about this the other day, right? Because obviously I wasn't here on the show last week, but I've been obviously I never switch off anyway, and I never truly switch off when it comes to Star Wars. So my brain was churning stuff over, and somebody pointed out it might have been. It's one of the Commonwealth podcasts. It was either Tumbling Saber or Generation X-Wing. It was Generation X-Wing because they played a clip from Episode 4, and it said it was Vader saying that several transmissions were beamed to the Tantive 4.
Mm-hmm.
So they never have to set foot on that ship.
No.
Ever.
No.
And they can still reference it, and they can still have something going on in the tent.
Yeah. In fact,
Tantive 4. I've been around. Oh, they've come for me. The Thought Police.
There you go. Spoiler cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I think I put something on the site about this recently, about Bail Organa's involvement in Rogue One. and how he's obviously on Yavin.
Yeah.
So I suspect he's going to leave to have to go and intercept the plans. And then maybe he and Leia split at that point, and he's going to head back because remember, he's still undercover essentially. He's a member of the Imperial Senate.
Yeah.
So he would split off and head back that way, and she'd shoot off that way. And potentially, I still think there's a nice bit of symmetry if K2SO is the only survivor from Rogue One and he delivers the plans. I would like it even more if he did it from the shuttle Tidarium, beam them to the Tantive, and then she shot off. And we see her loading those plans into R2 or something, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Oh, not all the plans, obviously, only the section they need. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Funny you talk about the only survivor. Did you say only survivor?
K2SO?
Yeah, because it's like when we were a Star Wars Celebration, we got a pretty good idea that one of them doesn't make it.
Yeah, well, I think that's become the stuff of legends, isn't it? That has indeed. Okay. Rob, thanks ever so much for your question.
Yes, thank you.
And as our Rob said, he's a member of the Star Wars Commonwealth and deserves your love.
Yes.
Right, we've got an email from Nathan Roberts.
Yes.
Paul, would you like to take this one?
No problemo. Okay. Hey, guys. Amazing episode last week. You asked for my opinion on the question I sent regarding force power alignment, which apparently I had issues with talking about. In my view... I'm sorry. It was a very personal moment. In my view, our idea of force powers has sort of been hijacked by the video games. We see certain force powers as being specific to a particular faction. But in my view, it's much more fluid than that, especially force powers. Force powers are tools. Many tools have multiple purposes and uses. A gun is a tool, has multiple purposes, and it can be used to hunt for food, or sport, or murder, or defend oneself. A Jedi might say that using a gun to hunt or for defense is okay. A Sith might say that all uses are acceptable means of achieving one's goals. A Jedi might use a shovel to dig a hole. A Sith might use it to bash someone across the head. As far as I can remember, the only specific guideline we hear in the movies is from Yoda. No Yoda voice, I'm sorry about that. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never attack. So, by those words, it's not the power that is light or dark, but rather its application. And that's my opinion. Keep it up, guys. Thanks very much, Nathan.
Hang on.
Very insightful.
There's another one. Let's pop that
more.
one first.
There's more. I just want to weigh in on this because I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I wasn't here for this.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think he's half right. I think the video games are the reason we've gone that far in that direction. But I think the video games were guided by the saga. Because there are certain characters who only use... It's just certain powers are only used by certain sides in the films. So we're kind of guided into that mindset. And as are, I think, the game designers as well. Now, bear in mind, obviously, when they're making Star Wars games, they still have Lucas story people kind of available to consult.
Yeah.
So I think that he's right in the sense that it's certainly been enforced. I think it's been reinforced by the video games. But I think the video games definitely came from the saga and the connected materials, which obviously now is Legends canon. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is he's kind of making the potentium argument, which is in the Legends canon, which is what people are kind of speculating might become the grey of the Force, which is that it's just power, and it's just how you use it that determines whether it's the light or dark.
Yeah,
in the Legends, that was something that Jason Solo struggled with a lot. Was how can I be good if I'm killing and that sort of thing. And he ended up kind of getting a lot of guidance from somebody who had their own agenda, and that's what sort of sent him down the dark path.
We took a step in that direction last week when we were chatting. Almost the other end of that potentium spectrum was about what balance might mean. I know we've discussed this for the past few weeks, so we won't labour the point. But last week I'd sort of mentioned that perhaps balance is to do nothing with the Force, and Luke is just existing, and the Force is existing in and around him, as if he was like one of these rocks or a tree. He's just in it, and he's just being within the. Maybe that's balance of the Force. The Force is allowed to work through and around you.
I can see that. I mean,
it's very Buddhist.
Very much so, and I think that's probably why it makes sense. I mean, I'd go one further and actually say that in order to achieve balance, you would have to let the Force guide you rather than use it as a tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'd be a passive.
Let the Force manipulate you rather than the other way around. Okay.
So on one end of the scale, you've got the way Nathan ends his email here, which is, so by Lloyd's words, it's not power that is light or dark, but rather it's application. So you've got the choice to either take that Zen route and just be with the Force, or you go to the other extreme and you start using it and you manipulate it and you put whatever your agenda is behind it.
Exactly, and I think, like I say, to be balanced, maybe you have to not apply it anywhere, and just kind of
do anything.
Just kind of channel it and just do what.
Because remember, Qui-Gon said the Force is a symbiotic relationship. So if Luke is just a vessel for the Force to do its work, and its work is not bringing you that cup or choking that person, or like Nathan said last week, starting somebody's heart with your Force lightning.
As happened in Legends.
Yeah, it's not. But that's not the Force's agenda. That's yours. And the Force wants to move through the Jedi, or move through somebody like Chirrut, what we see in Rogue One. I would imagine that's the Force working through him, and perhaps that's what we saw with Han when he raised the gun in Force Awakens and took the shot. Perhaps that's the Force working through him, which would mean potentially Han, if that's the case, he's probably more balanced than anyone we've seen.
Yeah,
because the Force has worked through him, rather than him manipulating it for his own ends. But just to acknowledge something you just said, Rob, and what Nathan's put here in his email about the video games, how they've polluted these things. Well, they're utilising the skills that we've seen Force users apply.
Yeah,
the video games have taken them and made them into special features. And they've turned the Jedi into superheroes. They can pull a Star Destroyer down from orbit, and you can levitate and explode and destroy everything in the room.
Yep.
It's a different medium. It's a different thing.
Yeah, but your need in a video game is far different, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think
the purpose is different. Yeah.
You need to feel
whether they're
as powerful as they look in the films.
In the films, they use for a much different reason, aren't they? They're there to communicate minute character choices, like Luke using the dark side in Jabba's palace to choke the Gamorrean guards. It's it's showing you tiny, minute pins along the character's pathway. Sorry, Paul, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, it's a very silly, trivial point. But let's say we get to Star Wars 28.
Yep.
And everyone's been doing their thing, and they've all been using the Force for this. What if it runs out?
Yeah.
What happens then? That's my point. What happens then between the New Order, the Republic, the Empire, the Jedi?
Star Wars Episode 29 is called The Force Replenishes. And it's just a picture of a rock with
the Big Bang.
Ice pack on its head with its feet up.
That's the Big Bang. That's creation.
Yeah. There you go.
It's interesting, actually, Paul, because the next part of Nathan's email, which I'm guessing...
I jumped ahead accidentally here.
Well, it's not a million miles away from that point you've just made. He's written, "Hey guys, another question for you to ponder. All life feeds the cosmic force, but what about artificial life forms, as in the clones? What sort of effect could a massive army of clones living and dying have on the force and its wielders? Could a twisted, abnormal form of life not meant to exist in nature and on such a massive scale feed into the dark side, which is a twisted, abnormal use of the force? Maybe this helped Palpatine gain power and contributed to his clouding of the Jedi's vision. Maybe Palpatine knew this and is why he chose clones rather than two armies of battle droids fighting each other. Be great to hear your thoughts, Nathan." So in the breakdown, I've just put, firstly, Nathan will henceforth be known as Nathan 1 Kenobi because
that's a superb hypothesis.
He is driving the quality of these questions up.
That is superb.
I really love that, seriously.
So does a huge introduction of life on the scale of the clones affect the balance of the Force? And will they strengthen the dark side? And if so, did that tip the scales in Palpatine's favour in the prequels?
It feeds off us, it binds us, it collates us, it collects us, it was,
penetrates us.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've got 10 trillion, they're still living organisms, the clones, aren't they? Then theoretically, you've got an extra mix in the balance, surely.
Now here's the thing. They did it in Legends. I feel like they had kind of a dealing of they had a kind of an insight into what the Jedi felt when they kind of thought of clones. There was a kind of oddness, and I seem to recall it was the Thrawn trilogy. The first Thrawn trilogy had clones in it, and I feel like Luke was kind of sensing that something was amiss. And then when he realised it, the reason it was because they all felt the same in the Force.
Okay.
And it makes some sense, I guess, if you're duplicating the biology of an organism. Theoretically, you're duplicating its midichlorians.
Midichlorians, yeah.
Are you diluting?
No, I mean you're
like a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
I suppose if they're all coming from the same source.
Yeah.
Rather than being copied from each other.
The midichlorians work like that.
Interesting, isn't it?
I don't know. Well, I mean, they might not have any midichlorians. But having said that, the first thing that came to my mind when I read Nathan's email the other day was, well, the first thing that came to my mind was, bloody hell, that's amazing. And the second thing that came to my mind was, well, Ben felt Alderaan when it was destroyed. He felt a massive loss of life.
Yeah.
So... that kind of begs the question if there's this massive...
Did he feel a loss of life or a massive purge in the Force? Or are they one and the same or not?
Do you know, if I had to put money on it right now, I'd say they're the same thing.
Yeah, I would say that's...
Because he said, I felt all those...
million lives. Yeah.
Suddenly cry out in terror.
Yeah,
and
screamed out in that.
That's
Yeah.
So he's feeling everything, isn't he? He's feeling them vanish from the Force, but he's feeling the despair when it happened.
Yeah.
So this sudden introduction of life, albeit, well, maybe it's not sudden if it's gradual. I suppose when the clones were being bred, maybe that's why.
Well, they said, didn't they? They had 1 million on the. Was it 1 million on the way?
Yeah,
100,000 done and 1 million on the way. And if you want more, it'll take more time. So, depending on, so they never really. This is the problem with the Sci-Fi DS plot. They never really resolve it
or
in
colour
a way
in any detail.
Yeah, so we never actually know how long it's been going on for. This stuff. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting one because, like I say, it highlights some of the gaps that we've got because the Legends is gone. We don't know we know that the Jedi feel them in the Force because
it happened in the Thrawn trilogy.
Well, I mean, even if you factor out the Legend stuff, Yoda's able to sense what's about to happen, and is able to jump in and do his flippy stuff.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made that rather than their presence in the Force being used by Palpatine to cloud people's vision, specifically the Jedi, it could also be that the war itself was such a massive distraction that no one had time to stop and think, hang on, who's pulling the strings behind this thing? They were just all in. Because suddenly you've got 10,000 Jedi and 100,000 units of clones going into battle with endless battle droids and a huge armada of separatist ships. So it was bedlam. And how can anyone
imagine.
stop to question who's behind this when you've got that to deal with first?
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that Palpatine's practically the next door neighbour. And that's where he's doing, if he is pulling some whammy on the Jedi so that they can't see what he's up to, that's where he's doing it from. Yeah. So he's up close and personal. They're distracted by these galaxy-wide events.
Yeah.
But he's 2 doors over, sort of doing his voodoo stuff and twirling his moustache.
I'll fix their wagon.
That's such a good question, Nathan.
It's a great question. I say I'd love to get an answer to that a proper canonical answer to that, but unfortunately, we no longer have one because we used to have the Legends answer. Nobody ever corrects me on Legends. We never get any feedback on whether or not I'm right about this stuff, so I'm going to assume I'm right.
Well, that's the only logical conclusion to draw.
In the absence of criticism, I must assume I'm great at absolutely everything else.
I think it's better to. I mean, it would have been easy to go to Wikipedia or Wikipedia and research some of this stuff and try and get a question. But I mean, Nathan's not. He could do that himself. He's coming to us for our take on it, and I think between the four of us, like us and Nathan, I think we've probably come up with a pretty
something good
appreciation for this amazing point that the choice of a clone army was to do something. To do. I mean, maybe it's because he could install Order 66 right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And with a droid, there's always a chance that programming is going to be found and altered. But with the drones, if it's hard lock into them biologically, there's no correcting that.
It's control chips, isn't it? It's physical because they remove them. Cody and Rex. Sorry, not Cody.
Yes,
Rex and his crew remove their.
They do.
Thing.
But it's a lot harder to rip the top off of a clone and probe around for these 40 parts than it is to do that with a droid. So I think part of Palpatine's motivation must have been, let's get this stuff. When he knew what his end game was, let's get this stuff baked into this biological hardware because no one's going to go poking around in there. It's the best place to hide one of those things, isn't it? So
it'll invalidate the warranty.
That's a really good point. Okay, that's a great question. Well, we were a bit light on listener questions this week. We did have, but because we got such a big news section, I've held one question back, which is from our friend Randomitable. So that will roll over to next week because it actually is quite intriguing. All right. No question of the week this week. We'll kick that off again next week, purely because I didn't put enough effort into writing these show notes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fly over to our first break of the evening here for the guys at Tumbling Saber. And then when we come back, we'll be heading over to Connor's Corner.
Hey, James and Corey, what's your post-Star Wars chat routine?
I like to lie back on my bed and look up at the stars and remember the good old days when I had a roof.
To be perfectly honest, Kyle, I usually sit there and stare at the floor for a good 15 minutes before I either pass out on the spot or stagger to bed with a lit smoke.
Yow.
Yikes.
Well, guys, the science is in, and it tells us that doubling down on Star Wars talk has many healthy benefits, like a broader view, a more serious mind, and a possible increase in your midi-chlorian count. So once you're done listening to the fine gents on Talk Star Wars, you should check out the Tumbling Saber podcast.
It's our great white northern take about the galaxy far, far away.
Take off, you hoser.
Sorry, man.
The fact is that Tumbling Saber isn't just idle speculation. At Tumbling Saber, we go deep, man. We provoke thought and conversation. We move the needle.
So check us out on iTunes and Stitcher.
We're also active on Twitter. I'm Chop Rules, me, with a Z.
Corey, I think it's a Z. I'm at Tumbling Saber on Twitter, by the way.
Isn't Zed dead? I'm pretty sure the cool kids hang out on Instagram and Facebook.
The kids are done with Facebook and Instagram, but you can find us there anyway. But that's not all.
Star Wars can drive even the sanest person mad with endless speculation. So join us as we ponder over the thousands of possible rabbit holes to travel down.
We love listener input on the Tumbling Saber podcast, so if there's anything you want to get off your chest, come lay your nagging questions and crazy theories at our feet. Our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day to serve all your supernatural elimination needs.
I thought this was a Star Wars podcast?
Dude, we're giving away 1 million Canadian dollars to the first person who gets the reference.
You better find out how many British pounds that's worth.
You shut your mouth over there.
And we're back. So that was the guys at Tumbling Saber, the Star Wars Commonwealth podcast partners. And you can follow them on Twitter, as mentioned, at Tumbling Saber and at Chop Rules. You can also follow James at Tommy Bombadil1, lyricist extraordinaire.
Rapping golfer.
He really is. Like, he sent me a video on Facebook the other day, and my God, man, it's nothing short of superb.
He is a talented wizard.
He's amazing. I cannot. I run out of superlatives. He's just incredible.
He actually
He's so nice.
He sent me
so nice. All of them.
They've recorded a new ad And he sent it to me the other day to just get my take on something, because they were disagreeing, I think, on one element of the thing, and they sent me the fully produced version and another version that was raw. Okay, he's amazing. James is amazing. Yep, rapping this little thing. I won't spoil it because there's a rap. There's a little bit of a rap there. I mean, all three of them are just firing on all cylinders. It's brilliant.
Yeah, nice. I look forward to hearing that one.
Yeah, I should say there are hyperlinks in these show notes as well. So if you ever want an easy way to get to these guys, you can download from the description of the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on. There is a link for you to download the show notes, and then everybody's Twitter handle is hyperlinked in there.
Nice. Okay, cool. So as is customary, after we hear from Tumbling Saber, it's time for Connor's Corner featuring Leo. So Connor writes. We assume Connor writes because we've had Leo write, but as he's mentioned, usually it's Connor. So
yeah, it would be Leo's Lounge if he had written it.
Yes, indeed. Hello, gents. It's that time of the week again, and as always, I've spent too much time thinking about Star Wars, and as always, I have something I would like you to discuss on your international, transcontinental, pan-European podcast.
But bigger than that, for crying out loud.
Not to put too fine a point on it. So I've just had a conversation in the car with Leo on the way back home, talking about our usual stuff, DC, Marvel, comics, upcoming movies, of which Rogue One came out on top, and the good and bad about the aforementioned. Then, as always, we got onto Star Wars, surprise, and I mentioned that you guys had talked about a Darksaber for Snoke, and he informed me about the one in the Clone Wars series. And I said, you know that trooper with the baton in TFA, why does he have a weapon to combat lightsabers? Then he replied with, maybe the First Order sent those guys in with Kylo to help wipe out Luke's school, which I thought was brilliant. That Kylo didn't defeat Luke's students through skill, but with sheer brute force and an overwhelming number of troops. Remember the end of Episode 3 at his disposal. I know in Rey's vision we see the knights with the bodies lying around them, but we're all in agreement that was a flash forward, if you remember. Are we?
I thought that as well. I think Connor's trying to use the Jedi mind trick on us.
I've said in the past that I thought it was possibly a flash forward, but I'm quite happy to believe it's either. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Is it possible that Luke had to flee because he was so outnumbered by his enemies? And do you think Luke saw Rey in that vision as we saw... Sorry, 2 seconds. Sorry, I had to sneeze.
Professional.
And do you... I'll go from the start of this question again.
Okay, mate.
Not the question, but I'll go from the start of the sentence. Is it possible that Luke had to flee because he was so outnumbered by his enemies? And do you think Luke saw Rey in that vision as we see her see him? Be it only his hand on R2, his way of telling her the droid will lead you to me when the time is right. Could this be the look we see on his face, spoilers, at the closing of Episode 7? It's you, the girl from the vision. You bring pain and suffering, war and death with you, as we, Luke and Rey, have foreseen. And if she's a child of the Force, he could most certainly feel this disturbance and now knows that Snoke and the Knights of Ren are not far behind. Has Luke found more Jedi on his pilgrimage across the galaxy and is drawing out his enemies? After the destruction of Starkiller Base, losing legions of troops, overstretching the First Order, making them weaker, helping his sister in her cause also. I just love the thought of Luke letting his enemies think they've got the drop on him with that map, and when they get there, he's ready for a fight, much like the full second Death Star plans being leaked to the rebels, just as Palpatino did. Oh. Anyway, I've taken up far too much of your time with this rambling. I'll say goodbye, and may the Force be with you. Connor influenced by Leo. So it's him with the Jedi mind tricks. Fair enough. Sent by Holocron.
Right, so darkness.
Question 1. Are the First Order troops equipped with lightsaber-ready weapons because they went in with Kylo Ren to wipe out Luke's school?
What a great idea.
It's a lovely idea. I'm not sure, to be
I don't
honest.
think that will happen in that way. I think even the Sith, you're going to strike me down. I think you probably understand where I'm coming from. Even they have a demented form of honor, and I think it would always be knight versus knight in some kind of situation.
Yeah, it's pride.
Yeah,
that's that motivation.
I can't see them doing anything from the point of view of the stormtroopers in that relationship. I really think it would be Ren versus Jedi or something along those lines. They do all have, anti-honor, whatever you want to call it, versus real honor and so on and so forth. So I think that would be a pure darkness versus light situation.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I like the idea of brute force attack on Luke's skull, but I agree totally with what Paul's just said, that there's a point of honour, and that, the Sith's point of honour will be the pride.
It's also power, isn't it? Yeah.
I want to be the one that does this. I don't want to have 1,000 people behind me to help me do it. But there is something, I think there might even still be in this draft of the show notes, that came out on Making Star Wars about the possibility of expanding on Rey's vision and the inclusion of some lightsaber designs that the students had. That if we do see, we'll go into it a little bit later, but if we do see some lightsaber action, there could be something to those batons, and maybe one of the Knights of Ren had the similar weapon.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, that might have been rolled out to the stormtroopers just because they thought, why not?
Yeah, I like that. Well, it's interesting because otherwise, why? It's almost like the First Order. Obviously, the First Order know that there was such thing as a Jedi, but it's almost like they don't want the galaxy to quite catch on, because obviously we know that Luke's been propagandized. Yeah, because he's been, because Rey says she thought he was a myth. So obviously they've kind of tried to spread the word that he's not real, and that he's just a sort of scare. Maybe he's a scare story that the Jedi tell, or people who are sympathetic to the loathsome resistance, as Hux puts it so eloquently. Whether they've kind of propagandized Luke to that point, but they're still going, well, he could come back, and maybe we should invest in some tech, because it doesn't make sense otherwise, does it? Because if they're convinced they've got every single Force sensitive killed, why would they need to worry about weapons?
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's
counteract the Jedi.
The tech was out there because Grievous had his guards had those.
Yes,
that technology on their staff, didn't they? So, I mean, it makes sense if they say, well, look, we got all this stuff. Do you want us to load everything on? And someone says, no, that anti-lightsaber thing, just don't include it, because we're probably not going to need it. If it's there, whack it on. Why not? The technology's there, and it covers all eventualities, doesn't it?
The stormtrooper that was armed with that, he wasn't armed with anything else, was he?
He had a blaster.
No, I think he was. Yeah,
he was.
Okay. He put his shield down, didn't he?
Yeah, he put his blaster and shield down. Yeah, put his blaster and shield down, and then pulled out the weapon.
So there might have just been a bit of JJ fun cinematic license attached to the weapon being there at all. So
definitely.
It was quite fun though.
It was a lot of fun. Should have been Captain Phasma in that scene fighting.
It was supposed to be
fighting Finn, but
they didn't know how to resolve it in a way that they could use to bring her back later.
Yeah, well, she only got tackled by a Wookiee later on, so
true.
In for a penny.
That's it.
Okay.
Well,
what else have we got in the breakdown?
So next part of that question. Let's see what we got. So, did Luke flee because he was outnumbered?
We're assuming he fled.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're assuming so. Yeah. Obviously, he's sort of given R2 the map, hasn't he? So he's not completely.
Think about that. Think about the little parable that the Mandarin uses in Iron Man 3 when he says that when the Braves are away.
Yeah.
That's when the troops strike, because the homestead's unguarded. What if Luke was off world when Kylo and the Knights of Ren struck down the school?
That's interesting. And Luke, he comes back. So what we see in the vision is him coming back and finding them all gone.
And that's why you see him.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
It's kind of, I read Mark's performance, assuming that was Mark under that cloak, as despair. The crouching down next to R2 and the way he leant one hand up onto the dome. It was very, it was almost like he was looking for comfort, looking for solace. And
it was almost like a sort
despair.
Or almost reassurance of R2.
Nothing about that scene, or nothing the way that scene in Rey's vision was composed, said that Luke was just coming off the back of an epic battle. He may have just come home. The Knights of Ren and Kylo, being cowards,
they're cowards,
had already gone in and done whatever they needed to do whilst the Brave was away.
I'm not seeing that.
You're not?
No, I'm seeing him coming back to absolute carnage.
Yeah.
But he just happened to not. Okay, but then he does have to flee, and the reason he puts his arm up, that's literally 10 seconds after he puts the map inside.
Yeah, it's definitely him. That could I definitely read that as being the last time Luke and R2 have any contact. Like,
Yeah.
it's go home, my little friend, and what have you.
Yeah.
But I don't Paul, what I'm getting at is I don't think that's Luke after just fighting the Knights of Ren. I think that's Luke coming back and finding the Knights of Ren had pillaged his school while he's been away.
No, sorry, same page then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a valid read on that scene. Do you see something else, Rob?
No, I'm kind of with you on that one, to be honest. I sort of see it as, now I think about it, I think, he hasn't fought anybody. Like I say, admittedly, when I first watched The Force Awakens, I saw it as it could have potentially been a flash forwards. Mm-hmm. But I was kind of talked out of it by various people who sort of said, well, no, there's dead. I didn't realise at first, even though I saw it 4 times at the pictures. You would think I'd notice this, but I didn't realise at first that there were any bodies around them.
Right. It was very dark and fleeting.
Yeah, I didn't realise. I didn't spot that at all. So, I'm perhaps the wrong person to ask.
Yeah. You've seen it in subsequent viewings, though, right?
Yeah. But now, it's in a similar way to, you remember the rumour about Snoke being in the mirror?
Yeah.
When somebody points something out to you like that, you go looking for it the next time.
Yes, yeah.
And the next time I went looking, and I managed to find that. So,
cool.
Definitely. All right, so the third part of Connor's question, I'll just find here. Is Luke actually drawing out the First Order and the Knights of Ren because he's rebuilt the Jedi Order in secret?
I don't think so.
No, I'm not seeing that. I'm not feeling that one.
I don't think so because, it's basically everything. I mean, Connor's so in touch with the Force that he's seen everything we've discussed already this evening. The stuff we've already spoken about with the clones and the mass numbers. If Luke had built the Jedi Order again in secret in the 6 some odd years since Kylo's turn, Snoke probably would have noticed that, right?
I would have thought so.
Somebody would have noticed that. And then if he's built this Jedi Order in secret, why would he be hiding on Arc 2, sort of sniggering into his hand, thinking, one day they're going to come and find me when they're doing all the damage out there? That doesn't add up to me. I think, I honestly, going back to what we said about what balance could be potentially, I think that Luke being on Arc 2, practicing this new grey version of the Force, just being not being a Jedi, not being a Sith, not using it, but letting the Force use him, is probably the way they're going to go with this. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing with what Connor said about when Luke sees Rey, he thinks, "Oh no, you're trouble." I thought that from the start, but not with Rey, but with the Skywalker lightsaber.
Right.
I thought when he saw that lightsaber, whether he recognises Rey or whether he recognises the potential of Rey, it was the lightsaber that he looked at and thought, not this again. And the call to arms again. Mm-hmm. That's that look.
Has Luke reached that point of wisdom? I'm wondering, though, when he knows when she comes, I know what she's bringing with her, and I know who she's bringing with her, hence his look.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he's like, Christ, and now there's a tsunami coming.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think, let's see, why not? Certainly can see the logic there.
I mean, it could almost be Luke for once saying, "It is all as I have foreseen," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, when Obi-Wan turned up on the Death Star, the first thing Vader says was, I can feel his presence in the Force. Last time I felt it was in the presence of my old master. Mm-hmm. If Luke's been just at one with the Force for all these years on Arc 2, and then Rey rocks up, maybe that's a major disturbance for him, even when it might be just when they come out of hyperspace.
Yeah.
He might have thought, oh, here we go. Something's coming. Mm-hmm. Put the cloak on. Forget the glove. Don't tidy up after his sushi because he left all his little dish out and everything. So there's plenty for them to play with there in that scene.
Absolutely. I think that at the very least, I think that look is a certain haunted state where he's like, he realizes. I mean, he's known Han Solo long enough to be able to feel his presence in the Force, I would think.
And I think the lack of it as well.
Yeah, I think he's definitely felt what's happened to Han.
And
But I think
you could form a
he's
list
going
here.
to feel responsible.
He could have felt the last of the light leave Kylo.
So for that to have happened to Han, he also knows there's bigger issues afoot.
Yeah, exactly.
If Snoke's a Force user and he was hiding himself like Palpatine did, maybe he flew back the veil at that point and revealed himself in the Force to Luke. There are endless possibilities, aren't there? For what
absolutely.
That haunted countenance is the way they describe it in the novelisation.
Yeah.
There's endless possibilities of what could cause that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I read it as being the Skywalker lightsaber, but it could be for someone else that they register that as being Rey is Luke's daughter, and that's what he's seeing. But for you, it could be, it's plausible that it's Han. He's felt the loss of Han. Yeah. That's what that haunted look is about. I mean, the fact is, Mark did such a good job with it. It's enigmatic enough now for us to read anything we want to in it. And it's going to be recontextualised in episode 8 when they finally reveal what it really is about.
Yeah, indeed.
And it wouldn't surprise me if it is that he's being pulled out of that balance that he's achieved with the Force. And that's why he looks haunted, because he's tired and he just,
Let me sleep.
When you crack the code, you crack the code to everything. You just want to sit there and do what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
You're a vessel for the Force, but no, you've got to go and kick somebody else's butt.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, come on, just let me rest.
Yeah. Connor, great question again.
As always.
Leo, thank you for your involvement, your influence over your father. Dark as it may be. Okay. Should we get to our Twitter poll results for this week?
Yeah, sure.
The Twitter poll is now closed. So
okay.
Last week I asked, might we see some familiar Imperial officers in Rogue One? Who would you like to see? Okay. Gave 4 options: Admiral Ozzel, Captain Piet, General Veers, and Admiral Motti.
Okay.
The results are in.
Right.
And this travelled to 2,619 people.
Wow.
Total engagements, 76 people took the time to vote.
Okay.
And 39% said General Veers.
Okay. He is kind of the cooler character, isn't he?
He is well cool, and he's got the AT-ATs as well. So obviously,
that is definitely a point. Yes.
Or like the ground assault. He's Lord and Master of the ground assault.
Is he the guy in the end of Last Crusade that drinks the cup and shrivels up?
Julian
Glover.
I want to say Glover. Yeah.
Yeah, Glover. Yeah, from Game of Thrones as well.
Julian G. Lover.
I like the guy that chokes. The guy that chokes was the guy at Granger, wasn't he?
Mr. Bronson, yeah. That was. I got a tweet from Mark and Debbie at Blue Harvest earlier on today saying, Mr. Bronson.
He was also Hitler in The Last Crusade.
He was, yeah. What an incestuous collection.
It's all very.
Isn't it?
All dodge.
So we had a couple of interesting comments as people retweeted and quoted this poll, and one of them I've selected here from Captain Alex 8 at Captain Alex 8 on Twitter. Says, with Grand Admiral Thrawn being introduced in season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, I'd love to see him show up in Rogue One.
I don't know. I can't agree with that one.
You can't.
I'm already smarting from the fact he's going to be in Rebels. So
is he in the right timeline?
No, this is the problem I've got with it. Is they have to they have to redo the timeline.
Yeah, no, he's in the right timeline to appear in both.
He would be now. Yeah,
but he's in the wrong timeline as it relates to Legends.
How he used to be. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a bit of pill to swallow. There's going to be plenty more of that coming, I think. Yeah, so I like that. The one people weren't interested in was Admiral Ozzel. That's Mr. Bronson. He only got 12%, and Motti as well only got 19%. I was quite surprised with that because I thought that with his presence on the Death Star, there might have been
some
more
Motti love.
Yeah, but
fair
it
enough.
is what it is. Right, next week's.
Yeah,
this one I was absolutely drawing a blank on Twitter poll questions this week.
Yeah, we all were.
Oh yeah, sorry, I meant to come back to you with something, didn't I?
Well, you can have next week's. Paul kicked in this
good.
one, which is, I think, really nice, light, satisfying question.
Yeah, it's lame but fun.
No,
That's
very
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Right, so this is about to go live. Let me just
bring it on.
There we go.
Right, so what are we looking at?
My drafts. Okay, so this question this week is, if you could fly any Star Wars vehicle, what would it be? The Millennium Falcon, a TIE Fighter, an X-Wing, or Slave One? That is going live now. 6 days and 23 hours to cast your vote. It's pinned to our profile right now.
Putting my vote in now. This might be a popular one, actually.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, I want to make sure to get my vote in this time because I didn't have a chance last week because obviously I was away.
Yeah, well, I'll be putting my vote in later because I have a very clear choice there.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, thanks for kicking that one in, Paul. So we'll see how that performs over the next week. Right, we're going to head off to another quick break and we're going to hear from the third member of Star Wars Commonwealth. That is Generation X-Wing. So you can subscribe to them on iTunes and follow them on Twitter at Gen X-Wing. And when we come back, we'll head up some Star Wars news.
There are a lot of great Star Wars podcasts out there, including...
Insert your name here.
But we at the Generation X-Wing podcast discuss things in a unique way.
Ah, I'm so happy I can't even feel my arms!
Generation X-Wing podcast takes a look back at pop culture that defines our generation.
Look, sir, droids.
From movies...
I think I read somewhere that Kurt Russell thought that, this is really like Indiana Jones. But to me, watching it just fresh today, he was really Han Solo.
To TV...
There's a Nova Scotia show
we
could bring up.
What is that?
Trailer Park Boys?
Oh, okay. It's not Trailer Park Boys.
You know what? I think that's a whole episode.
It is. I'm just going to say it's very Canadian.
Okay.
And I love it to death. So does Anil.
From collecting...
Silent Mike is back.
Silent Mike is back with batteries.
1970. Oh,
and the Twix.
And he just dropped it on Wayne Gretzky's rookie card.
A case of Twix.
Good man.
This better be a good Twix.
And of course, we discuss our wonderful Star Wars universe.
I am so thrilled today because I have been invited by the Outer Rim Garrison, the 501st Outer Rim Garrison of Vancouver, BC, to walk with them in the Canada Day Parade in downtown Vancouver.
So once you're done listening to these great people here at
Insert your name here.
Come over to the Generation X-Wing podcast with your hosts, Anil Sharma.
That is gonna be a shame.
Josh Whittle. Peace. And Rob Williams. Pork chop sandwiches. It is a modern look at your retro lifestyle. Follow us on Twitter at Gen X-Wing, on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on our homepage at generationxwing.com.
And we're back, and we're going to go over some of the juicy Star Wars news. And for a couple of weeks, you might have heard also on our partner podcast, Tumbling Saber, we've been kicking around with no Star Wars news. But this week, all of a sudden, there's loads of stuff to talk about.
It's all kicked off this time round.
It has all kicked off. In fact, there was something in the Force Awakens news as well this week, but I've taken it out to keep things nice and short.
Balanced?
Balanced, indeed. There's an awful lot of stuff going on in Rogue One, so let's jump into some of these bits and pieces, shall we? So, Star Wars creators Disney and Lucasfilm, along with director Gareth Edwards, gave a terminally ill Star Wars fan, his name's Neil Hanvey, they gave him a private screening of Rogue One, which is just wonderful.
Yeah, that's really nice.
It was a bit like Daniel last year. Do you remember Force?
Yeah, I was going to say, they did that for Daniel, didn't they?
Yeah,
and that's it's really it's lovely.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Hanvey passed away shortly after having seen it.
It's not so lovely.
It's not, but it's so nice that Disney.
It's nice that it's nice it was successful. Yeah,
it was. So I know that's not really news. I just wanted to mention it. So often we jump to the negative stuff. And we're jumping up and down on these massive corporations, but they do have a heart. And this was clearly led by Gareth. I know Mark Hamill was putting his weight behind it as well. It's clearly the only right thing to do, and they did it, and it's classy, and I just think they should be acknowledged for it. So thank you,
well,
Disney
just think, you imagine if you imagine you're the person at Disney who makes that decision, and you say no or you delay long enough that something horrible happens, you'd never forgive yourself, would you? So it's nice that they they understand that there's more important things than protecting secrecy. And but then I'm sure that there were ways that they were going to do it so that he wasn't going out and periscoping it immediately after seeing the film or anything. So some people, unfortunately, some people would do that. But I think in that situation, you have to give somebody the benefit of the doubt for that one. and just be like, let's just do something cool because we can.
Indeed.
And they clearly have.
I'm just making a note for myself because I'm going to tell a story after the end credits this week.
Right.
It's not in the show notes. I hadn't planned to do this.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in the end credit after the end credits. So if you're interested in hearing
spoilers.
This story, it's not for spoiler reasons.
No, I know, but it's like what we do for that.
Yeah. So hang around after the end credits and I will just tell you this thing. And I've made a note so I won't forget this week.
Marvellous.
Okay. Some Rogue One images hit Empire this week. Do we want to just look at those?
Sure.
Do you want to go through them? Oh, there's a hyperlink in your show notes if you click on it, and it will take you to this wonderful website that's obviously curated by a charming and handsome gentleman. talkstarwars.co.uk, and there we see some images which I clumsily left on scroll, so it's going to be difficult to go through.
Oh wow, okay.
There's some spoilery stuff in here, I think.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, we get. It's hard to know where to start. So there we go. We got Gareth on set or on location in the Maldives. There, the guys from ILM behind him.
Yep.
And Cassian and Jin, obviously, Diego Luna and Felicity Jones. But look, if you look between their legs, there's a stormtrooper on the ground.
Oh yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
So clearly, someone sees a hell of a lot of action.
If you look behind the guy with what appears to be the light assembly, there's one in the background as well in the corner.
Yeah.
With the
See
light
that at the back.
With the
back corner.
And about halfway up on the right.
With
Very
the
right.
Yes, yeah.
There's one there too.
Dude with a disco ball, and then behind him there's a leg or an arm.
Ball.
Yeah.
The ILM thing for referencing light, yeah. So that's a pretty cool behind the scenes look at things at the Imperial bunker. The next image is
that's interesting, isn't it?
Donnie Yen.
Yeah.
Looking for all the world like a beggar.
Yeah, he looks like he's got an arms bowl in his hand.
Is this an extension of his drunken master disguise?
A good question.
When you see him, you think he's this disabled, impoverished person who then opens up a can of whoop arse on you.
Maybe that's what he became.
Sorry, say again, Paul?
Maybe that's what he became. And that's what she wants him for. She knows what he can do.
Yeah.
This is persuasion. This is a persuasion scene.
Yeah, I like that.
So you don't think that you think that that's actually his status?
Yes.
And she's just putting him back on his feet and saying, get back in. Oh, right. That's a really interesting take on that. That's not the way I read that, but that is brilliant.
That's cool.
Okay, so after the Donnie Yen picture with the bowl, we get Baze clearly on Yavin. So this is what I mean by spoilers. Depending on when they spend their time at Yavin, we know Baze gets there.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have thought anything of it.
But you see what I mean about how there's a little bit.
Well, we're assuming that's Yavin. It looks. I agree with it. It looks especially like it.
That architecture does look like it. Yes,
it does look very much like it. But
what are the chances that this is?
You're talking about Yavin or its fourth moon, by the way?
Well, yeah, fourth
moon. Yeah. What about?
What's it called?
In The Force Awakens, was it
just Yavin 4?
Takodana. Oh, you're talking about the Masashi Temple, Paul?
Yeah, Yavin 4.
Yeah, on Yavin 4.
Yeah.
It's just called Yavin 4.
It's just called Yavin 4. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What if it's Dantooine?
Oh.
I think that was.
Oh my God! Shut up!
No, she plucked that out. She plucked that out of the sky.
Sorry.
Do you think?
Really getting on my wick now.
Yeah.
That's all right, mate.
Ridiculous.
People are used to it now.
You'd think it's a convention in town.
Speeder bike convention.
Yeah.
It happens every time.
Teddy bears kill you.
Hope
teddy bears kill you.
Listen to the cast. Yeah.
Right, moving on from Baze, maybe or maybe not being on Dantooine because that base had been deserted for some time. We get Krennic.
Yeah.
Yes.
On what? Death Star? Star Destroyer?
Judging by the guards at the back, Death Star.
Yeah. The pit in the ground sort of says.
Oh, there could be a
pit in the ground says Star Destroyer.
Yeah, and the doorways. I don't know. No, the
and
doorways were the same.
Generation X-Wing pointed out that in Jedi, you get those guys with the snow shovel helmets
at
the beginning
on the Death Star. Yeah, because when we
isn't it a Star Destroyer they land on?
No, they land the shuttle.
That's a Death Star shot.
The Emperor's shuttle. They land on
the Death Star.
That's a Death Star.
Yeah, where is this? When we do our audio description of,
I'll have to point it out when we do Jedi.
When we do our audio commentary of Jedi, I've got to point out some horrendous extra acting by one of those guys wearing those snow shovel helmets.
Tell you what, if we're watching the digital HD version, I've got to show you some horrendous, what's it called? Brown acetate sheets.
Oh, right, okay.
I mentioned those to you before.
No.
They're horrendous. They've never updated I'm guessing they never updated the film stock when they did the special editions for Jedi.
Right.
Because you can see all the acetate sheets behind the...
That might be the best one yet.
That was epic, but...
That was less than 12 parsecs.
Exactly.
I'm going to leave that in. I'm not going to cut that out. That's great stuff.
That's fine.
All right. So what else?
Yeah,
sorry, Rob, you were saying about acetate.
So when they updated the film stock for New Hope, obviously they improved the battle. So obviously they updated the film stock. With Jedi, they never did, and it shows on the Blu-ray. There's these whacking great blobs of brown acetate around the edge of lots of the ships. They're only on for a fraction of a second, but it's really jarring.
Okay.
It takes you right out of the battle.
Wasn't it Jedi with the extra trap where the letter H stuck in the middle of the screen, didn't it? At one point, there's a TIE fighter doesn't zoom into shot; it just appears in the middle and disappears again.
Oh,
yeah.
And they left it in.
I think that's the same thing. I think that's the Blu-ray.
Because they said we were dealing with like 57 objects at the same time.
Yeah.
It was like the biggest effect shot ever done at that point.
At the time, it was the most complex technical shot ever made, or something.
Do you know what they did all right?
Little letter H appears in the middle and then disappears.
I've been watching that film since I was 11, and I've never seen these things.
No,
you don't like it.
I do. I just don't like it as much as the two that went before it.
Fair enough. To be fair, it's not as good as Empire.
Let's. I just want to look at one more image before we bail out of this bit because.
Which one, sir?
It's the one. It's the very orange shot of Jyn.
Oh yeah,
she's wearing a rebel.
It's fantastic,
garb.
Isn't it?
She's got a mask hanging around her neck.
She does, like a rebreather,
which is very similar to what Sam Guerrera is wearing.
Oh, I was going to say 2 tubes.
Saul's got that around his.
Well, who
armor,
knows when you're going to get some kind of smoke bomb thrown in your face?
She's also dripping wet.
Yeah. Did you see in the Celebration sizzle reel? There's a shot of Jyn on all fours, as if she's just pushing herself back up off the ground.
Someone sprang a fire hose in her face.
Yeah, and she's getting blasted with like a hit of air, and it's pushing all that water off of her poncho.
Oh yeah.
What on earth is going on there? I don't know. Ship taking off.
That's a bantha.
Oh, was it? Just with wind.
Yeah, don't ask.
Okay, let's leave those photos there then.
That's a really lovely shot, actually. She's fantastic there.
Yeah, it's like I said last week, any shot with her in is a beauty pass.
Yeah, it always helps.
Well, yeah.
Fantastic stuff. Okay. Depending on your take on Palpacino, this may not be a piece of bad news. Ian McDiarmid was at the Amsterdam Comic-Con and confirmed that Palpatine will not be present in Rogue One. He's had no involvement.
As much as I love Palpatine, I'm actually kind of glad.
Yeah, I am too. And your reasons?
Only because I feel like eventually they would have got to the point where they were just chucking in people because they could. And quite frankly, Ian McDiarmid deserves better than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He deserves better than to be a passing kind of,
Yeah, but like it or not, he's done with Star Wars. I think Ian McDiarmid.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't think there's room to bring him back unless they specifically do another movie set in Rogue One era that's going to have him centre stage. But my reasons for being... I'll stop short of saying relieved that Palpatine's not going to be in it.
Yeah, not bummed out.
I'm not disappointed because his status in A New Hope was almost mythic. We've all heard the story that Palpatine removed himself from public life and shuttered himself away once he'd consolidated all his power.
Yeah.
So I think this is very much in keeping with that. If he's like this mystery thing off in the distance that's referenced a couple of times by other characters within the story, that's in keeping with the way he was delivered to us in A New Hope. He doesn't need to rock up and be the big bad with the cackle and the rotten fingers and face. He's done his bit.
At most, I would have been kind of I would have accepted a hologrammatic appearance. I would have been all right with that. But I think if they were going to talk about doing appearance in shot, no, I'm fine with this not being the case.
Paul, your take?
Oh, I said from the word go, I didn't want to see it. So
yeah,
fair enough.
That's in keeping. No, it's good news, and I like. There's a link again in the show notes that will take you to the piece, and it will take you to the video on YouTube of. We want to go with Krennic anyway, don't we? So.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's some big time reveals coming up about Krennic.
Do you know? I'm at real risk. I'm at real risk, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'm at real risk of developing a man crush when it comes to Krennic, because he's just awesome.
Well, it is Ben Mendelsohn at the end of the day.
Well, absolutely. In his eyes, I could swim in them.
Let's have a little bit of a sidebar, right? Ben Mendelsohn is one of the most important and impressive actors around at the moment, and he's in a Star Wars movie, and he's loving every bloody minute of it.
Totally.
How good is that?
Yeah, it's great.
And Forrest Whitaker is drawing in some big hitters now, isn't it?
Forrest for me was massive. I've been a Forrest Whitaker fan forever.
Yeah.
Even like Panic Room, for crying out loud, and Crying Game and stuff like that. I was so in love with that guy. It's not funny. And then you see this old guy pop up, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool.
Yeah. They're getting some proper, like you said, they're getting some real kind of powerhouses.
Yeah, it really is. It's so impressive. I mean, what's coming next?
So I said this is the question, isn't it?
Chris Walken.
Can you
Chris
imagine
Walken
as a Sith Lord?
Wow, the dark side.
Wow.
Oh, ring. Right,
wow,
note to self. Christopher Walken ringtones. He should be General Veers, right? In the all-terrain armored troop transport.
The generator is down.
The snow
you can start your approach when ready.
Oh, Rob, I'm so glad you got that voice in there as well. This is good. This opens up endless possibilities.
Everybody who fancies themselves an impressionist has got a half-assed Walken in there somewhere. You've got to try
and do a Walken somewhere.
100%.
I've never been able to do it. I just can't get the rhythms of it.
Anyway,
here's a character that isn't going to be played by Christopher Walken. Segue. A new droid was revealed on this week's Star Wars show, which you can see.
Oh, please say it is Christopher Walken. Beep, boop.
Might be.
There's a fantastic, on a side note, I won't keep it for too long.
No, go for it.
You know, there's obviously a sort of a cabal of really famous cartoon voice actors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like your Mark Hamills, your Kevin Conroys, your Billy West, and people like that.
Yeah.
There's a video on YouTube of a selection of them. So it's Billy West, John DiMaggio, Tara Strong, Rob Paulson, who's like a heavyweight, like a god among voice actors, famous for things like Animaniacs and the old Ninja Turtles and stuff. They're doing Star Wars.
All right.
Reading from I think it's like either from the radio drama or from the screenplay.
Right.
And as they go from scene to scene, the moderator is giving them characters to do from their catalogue of characters. So there's, Zoidberg turns up as a character, and the moderator will go, in this one, Billy West is going to do C-3PO, but he's going to play him as Johnny Carson. And that sort of thing. So they'll do the lines in that and actually there's a scene where R2-D2 gets assigned to somebody as Christopher Walken, and he's like, beep, boop, beep.
But he'd have to do a little dance move, because Walken sneaks a dance move into everything he does, doesn't he?
This is true, yeah, he absolutely does. I mean, obviously in the Fatboy Slim video, it's a little bit more...
On the nose.
On the nose, exactly, yeah.
So impressive. How cool is that guy? Unbelievable.
Yeah, he really is cool.
All right, back on the book. The new character is a droid. It's a black astromech droid called C2B5, and it looks goddamn amazing.
It is right. It's very sleek. It's like matte, it's matte black and
just incredible.
That's another one. If they do
it's the total yin yang of R2, isn't it?
Isn't it
it's
just
lovely. Yeah.
And the other thing,
do a pop of this one. This is day one as well. I'm only getting bad characters. I need somebody.
Yeah, no, this would be
maybe I'll get it done again.
This would be a sideshow for me. This one, it would be absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah.
What I really liked about this, you can watch the Star Wars show. It's embedded at the top of the homepage in talkstarwars.co.uk. But Peter Townley was delivering the synopsis or this character's biography on the show, and something he said that I thought was really interesting. He said the Empire regularly format the droids' memories so they can't develop personality.
Okay.
Now that says so much about the droids that we've grown up with, doesn't it?
Yeah,
about
sure.
R2, the fact that R2 is the only person that knows everything that's happened in Star Wars.
Yes. Well, that's the reason that Lucas was sort of imagining him recounting the Journal of the Whills, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because he's the guy that knows it all.
Yeah, exactly. He's been the one he's also been, spared things like memory erasure and stuff over the years.
Memories of erasure. Terrible, terrible bad. I'll have them wiped. Thank you.
Give him a little respect, Mark.
well played.
There you go.
Okay, let's get to the big one then. So this popped up on makingstarwars.net this evening, and I quickly had to get it onto the show notes because it's just too juicy to pass up. Major spoiler warning here for Star Wars, for Rogue One Catalyst, the novelisation that's coming out before Rogue One.
Yep.
And also, I suspect from having read this, spoilers for Rogue One. So if you don't want to hear it, jump forward about 5 minutes. I'll try and keep this to 5 minutes. So this is a synopsis that came out for the book Rogue One Catalyst.
Okay.
Just wait for that speeder bike to go past.
Yeah.
War is tearing the galaxy apart. For years, the Republic and the Separatists have battled across the stars, each building more and more deadly technology in an attempt to win the war. As a member of Chancellor Palpatine's top-secret Death Star project, Orson Krennic is determined to develop a superweapon before his enemies can. And an old friend of Krennic's, the brilliant scientist Galen Erso, could be the key. So much information there. Galen's energy-focused research has captured the attention of both Krennic and his foes, making the scientist a crucial pawn in the galactic conflict. But after Krennic rescues Galen, his wife Lara, and her and their young daughter Jin from Separatist kidnappers, the Erso family are deeply in Krennic's debt. Krennic then offers Galen an extraordinary opportunity to continue his scientific studies with every resource put utterly at his disposal. While Galen and Lara believe that the energy research will be used purely in altruistic ways, Krennic has other plans that will finally make the Death Star a reality. Trapped in their benefactor's tightening grasp, the Ersos must untangle Krennic's web of deception and save themselves and the galaxy itself. That's posted on makingstarwars.net. That is absolutely loaded with exposition. What a juicy thing.
Wow.
So much there. So clearly this book's going to be set around the time of Revenge of the Sith, which is
it's going to be post Revenge of the Sith, but more kind of, it's going to be close to episode 4.
Chancellor Palpatine.
Oh, yeah.
A member of Chancellor Palpatine's secret Death Star project. So we're seeing this around the time of Revenge of the Sith. It clearly isn't after the events. So clearly Anakin's still on the scene when this happens. He's not quite Vader yet. So we know the Death Star was already in development because it was by the end of Revenge of the Sith, it was hanging in space.
Okay, how pre-Rogue One is Rogue One Catalyst, though?
We don't know.
That's the thing.
It mentions Jin, so I'd say Jin's probably 25 to 30. I'd say maybe 25.
Yeah, but don't forget, we see Jin as a teeny weeny in the...
Yeah, that I think is around about...
I'm thinking...
We're going to see some of this.
This is still 10 years pre to the events of Rogue One.
We're going to see that, I think, on screen.
Halfway,
halfway
through.
We're going to see it, but it's going to be 10 years pre to the major events of what we're expecting from Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of just after halfway through.
Yeah, hence the Chancellor bit, but it's very interesting about Galen.
You know what blew my hair back? Just the reference that Galen is Krennic's friend.
I know. That was the first thing when you were sitting there reading it. I was like, "What?"
Yeah. So this is what crossed my mind.
Yeah.
When we were at Celebration, Paul, they revealed the Jyn Erso action figure, And on the box, in brackets, it says Jeddah.
Right.
Now, that implies to me that that's a planet of origin.
Right.
So,
or the outfit she's wearing on that scene.
Could be the outfit that's been worn in the scene, I guess. It could be a bit like Luke's Bespin fatigues.
Yeah, exactly,
But if Galen is from Jeddah, because we're assuming that the research he's conducting involves kyber crystals, and that's why he's been used on the Death Star project.
Yeah.
Right, I'll cut to the chase. If Galen's from Jeddah, is Krennic from Jeddah? And is that why we see that look on Krennic's face when the Death Star's hovering over Jeddah with a weapon pointed at it? Is he about to destroy his own homeworld for the Emperor?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because that look on Krennic's face in the trailer says so much.
Be right back. Go to watch the trailer.
Oh, man.
Just run it in the background
go
silently,
talk Star Wars, and there's a breakdown with pictures.
There is. Talkstarwars.co.uk. Wonderful.
Never heard of it.
Wonderful
Never heard of
website.
it.
Run by a slim, tall, handsome man with a full head of hair.
Have you delegated it, Mark?
Like me then.
Why do I set myself up for this sort of abuse? This passage.
It is unavoidable.
It is unavoidable.
It is your destiny.
What a great thing to reveal here. We had
it's so huge. Do
you remember a couple of weeks ago?
2 paragraphs. It's enormous.
Enormous. Stacey White floated that Lyra Urso might be Jin's mother.
Yeah.
Stacey hit it nail on the head, didn't she? Absolutely got that.
Stacey,
spot on. What else is in there?
Well, basically, it flips the whole.
It frames
kind of
everything
goes back,
for us.
It frames what we were saying about before, where we thought Galen might be an Oppenheimer style character, but it goes even further, and he's actually being actively duped. But it's interesting because I'm going to go back into Legends alert. Maybe we should have like a spoiler warning,
klaxon, that Rogue One klaxon,
like a trigger warning, like a spoiler warning. Legends alert. In Legends, there was a series called Jedi Academy. It was a trilogy of novels, and there was a character in it called I never knew how to pronounce her name, but I think it was Quizux, and she built this machine called a Sun Crusher, and it was a super weapon that fired energy into the sun and destroyed the entire solar system that sun was attached to. So not a million miles off from Starkiller Base, really.
Yeah.
And she was in a similar way convinced that it was being used for something else. I think it was she was convinced it was being used for mining or something, like it would be used to wipe out dead planets or something like that.
Right.
And somebody said, how can you possibly think that's what they would do? And then she actually sees it get used, and a solar system gets destroyed. And she kind of realizes her mistake, and then she actively sort of works with the New Republic to combat the Imperial Remnant.
Okay.
And people like that. So it's interesting because they're kind of, again, they're introducing elements of old canon back in different ways, and it's very clever.
Well, can I expand on that? What you've just said then, Rob, because that's just triggered something for me. If we say that character's motivation was cognitively reframed by seeing the weapon in action, will Galen see this weapon in action, and that will lead to him broadcasting the message that we hear in the international trailer, which is actually trailer E, believe it or not?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's
that's the look, Paul, that you just sent. That's the look right there.
That's the one. He's been. I said. You remember I said when we did the breakdown?
Yeah.
I thought he'd just had a telling off.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of refine that. He's just been told to do something he doesn't want. He's not happy about.
Like destroy his planet.
Destroy his planet.
Do you not think he's the type of character? I'm already starting to get these vibes that he's so desperate to win Palpatine's approval that he would willingly destroy his home world to sort of go back and say, "Yep, look what I just did." Oh, that's going to be interesting to see. I wonder whether or not this planet that we see, the planet Scarif, where the Death Star hovers over it. I wonder whether that's going to take a belt off the Death Star, and Galen's going to see that.
Maybe.
No, because
But
the,
that threw
the
me into
road's
another
already
question.
on there. Go on, Paul.
We were talking about, it was rather silly again, but a rather silly trivial point out last week. I was talking about the levels in the Death Star and when do you stand up and when do you stand down and so on. Because
Right.
the obviously the major weapon is on the lower half of the Death Star for once. We haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
So
think
who's standing up and who's standing down in that situation?
all the characters on board will be upside down because they're viewing what we can assume is the north pole
There's no
of the
upside
moon.
down in space.
No, but
I know what you mean.
contextually, yeah. So if you look at that shot where the Death Star's upside down with the dish pointing down at the north pole of the moon, when we see it from the Death Star's perspective, they're actually looking at what appears to be the south pole of the moon.
Yeah.
And they're all standing up. So it's really interesting the way they've decided to play with space and orientation. And that's why I surmise when we did the trailer breakdown that the only thing that can really be doing is drawing attention to the fact that the dish is on the bottom because it's aiming at the planet.
It's designed to. Well, I mean, even if you think about it from the point of view of, if you think about it from the other way up, you'd be looking at the bottom of the planet, and the Death Star facing up normal size.
It's what, Paul? Would you say?
Yeah, it's a little close.
It's close to blow the planet up. That's why I don't think that it'll blow the planet up. I think it's just going to destroy its atmosphere, and that's something that. Rob, you've already mentioned Oppenheimer this evening, and I know I mentioned this in a previous episode, but Oppenheimer was terrified that when they tested the bomb in the Bikini Islands, that it was going to set light to the atmosphere of the Earth and wipe out all life. Because
He wasn't far wrong, was he?
No one knew how the atomic bomb was going to react until they
First time it's ever
tested
been
it.
done.
He was 70% right.
Yeah. So, this might be the thing where they're doing it here, where Krennic's sort of turning the dial up to 3 and saying, let's just destroy the atmosphere of Jeddah and leave it this dead, barren moon, and wipe out everybody on it. That will be their penance, is to have their homeworld completely stripped of life. And then by the time we get to Tarkin, he's not, no, crank that thing up to 11, back it up a little bit, and let's just blow all around the smithereens.
So we also got the idea now that, obviously, from the point of view of Galen and Jin, this is a rescue mission stroke save the world mission at the same time.
I think so, yeah.
Probably in the bowels of that iron beast. As they call it.
I think so. I think he will send that message not just to point out that it's a trap and this thing isn't. I mean, how can you look at the Death Star and think that's going to be used for altruistic means? Once he's
naive,
once he's in the belly of the beast, he's probably thinking, "Oh God!" And then he builds in, like Rob said last week, that he builds in that small thermal exhaust port as a weakness.
I'm so proud of that.
Yeah, that's a really good insight.
Yeah,
not
well, he doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily even that he builds it in as a weakness. He builds it in as a mechanism and then tells them about it as a way of saying, "Oh, however."
Yeah.
And to think he did it 3 times.
That's it.
Okay, I think people need to download your show notes and have a read of this over and over and over again, because it really is it's just the most amazing 2 paragraphs.
Depending on how much spoilers you want, yeah.
Indeed. Right, we've gone on long enough. Okay, let's jump over to some episode 8 news, and then we can get out of here. So Daisy Ridley mentioned, I can't remember who she was talking to. Can I see it? No. She was talking to, she was on a podcast.
Wasn't
yes. No,
it was called.
I know the name of this. Yeah,
My
it's a weird
Father
name.
Wrote a Porno, I think, or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know why Daisy was on a show like that.
Well, I mean, we don't know everything about her history, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not a wholesome family show with a name like that, but you never know. So Daisy was on that podcast, and she said she knew what the title for episode 8 was.
Yeah.
But she believes it's changed. She said, I've heard a title, but I don't know if it's going to be that. I really don't know much about anything. I heard the title a long time ago before we started filming, and so I feel some things have been slightly tweaked during production. It's going to be a while before it's released, I imagine.
Okay.
That's really interesting. I mean, the amount of flack Rogue One got for its pickup shoots, which was just built into the production the way most big budget movies have pickup shoots built into its production. And now we're learning that the context may have shifted enough on episode 8 for the title to have changed.
Yeah.
What's this say to you guys? You read anything into this? Should we be reading anything into it?
No, I think it's I think that's perfectly reasonable to happen as part of a normal film development. I think of it this way, right? You might come up with a name. Let's say, for argument's sake, it was called Balance of the Force, right? Mm-hmm. So you come up with a name. Balance of the Force is your working title, and you start telling people the title, and the more you hear it, the less good it sounds, and you realise that people are going to be talking about that title forever, and it's going to be it's going to be the title for as long as it exists. So, I think it's perfectly reasonable for a director to go back and decide that they don't want to do it the way they originally.
Well, it's not without precedence either. Even in the Star Wars.
Oh well, true. Yeah,
canon.
There's Jedi, isn't there?
Yeah, you know that, Paul.
Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a detour trying to look at all previously used titles for Star Wars films.
Okay, then you might hit on this one. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, was initially called Revenge of the Jedi. Well, actually, it was originally called Return of the Jedi.
And then it was going to be Revenge of the Jedi. And then it went back again because Lucas said, hang on, we're kind of encapsulating the ending before we've actually put the film out.
And also he said, revenge. Sorry, Rob, you take this.
Somebody else pointed it out to him. They said, Jedi don't take revenge.
Yeah.
And he went, oh.
And now something came up on a podcast earlier this week. I want to say this was on makingstarwars.net. Now this is podcasting. In fact, I think it was. Somebody said that they really had their mind blown when it was suggested that the return of the Jedi meant Vader, but he returned as a Jedi, rather than the concept of the Jedi return to the galaxy.
Yeah, you can kind of take it different ways.
You can take it both ways, but when you think about that being Anakin returning, it makes it much more personal.
It does. It also makes more sense because there's no others really mentioned. It's not about Luke.
Which makes those two options in that title very, very different. Polar opposites, in fact. Because the Revenge of the Jedi means something completely different intellectually than than Anakin. It might as well have been called the Redemption of a Jedi. The Return of the Jedi. If that's what we're to take that title to mean, that it's Anakin's return from the dark side, from the Sith.
Yeah.
That's far cooler.
It's far cooler. That's the idea. But then Revenge of the Jedi makes absolutely no sense, does it?
What about Foodles?
Foodles is a great title. They're naughty people though, because they like to squash Indiana Jones's legs.
Well,
who doesn't?
My goodness.
And the Space Bear.
Space Bear is a great one.
Yeah.
Space Bear. Yeah.
Okay, next piece of episode 8 news. Will Leia confront Kylo Ren about Han's murder? So this came from Reddit, so I'm not sure how much credit we should give it.
Don't suppose you know which subreddit it came from, do you?
I do not know, unfortunately.
Okay.
No, this
Have
was
a look at,
third hand by the time
Reddit could be anything, couldn't it?
Well, that's the thing about Reddit is it's got the subreddits, which are like the boards.
Yeah. Well, this could be considered slightly spoilery as well, so you might want to jump forward a couple of minutes. And this is what was written by somebody on Reddit. Leia is kidnapped by the First Order in Star Wars Episode 8 and awakes. She sees her son sitting across from her. Kylo Ren begs her to tell him the whereabouts of the rogue stormtrooper Finn. So clearly he's hell-bent on revenge, right? In this movie. She refuses. She asks him about Han. Kylo is angry at the mention of his father. He never forgave him for leaving Leia during such a dark time. He took it upon himself to grow stronger for his family, Kylo that is. Leia counters that it wasn't Han's fault and there's nothing he could have done differently. Kylo Ren seems affected by this news and appears to change his position on his late father. I'm going to call BS on this.
I'm going to call. I'm going to call major BS on this one because of I've just been to the page that it came from, and it's got it's basically trying to make Snoke Plagueis, and it's not going to work.
No.
Because actually, this one, so this is, Carl would love this. Well, he wouldn't, but he would.
Clickbait.
According to a Star Wars Theory, this YouTube channel, a script leak, in quotes, Luke comes face to face with Snoke, and Snoke says that he met Vader at one point and adds, "After all, what father doesn't see his own creation?" They're basically saying that Snoke is Vader's grandfather.
Oh, that's been milling around for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, well, it's like I say, it's all kind of born from the same.
But Pablo's
Snoke
come out
Plagueis.
and said categorically that Snoke is not Plagueis; he is his own character, right?
This is wishful thinking.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's leave it stone cold dead and move on to the next.
Yeah,
point.
leave that. And actually, you can probably kill off the next one because I think it seems to come from the same place.
Okay, but there is something more interesting to this, and I heard this on Tumbling Saber. They were talking about it. So, potential episode 8 teaser release date has been rumoured on Instagram. It looks like the trailer could hit the big screen on the 20th of December, which would give Rogue One almost a week in cinemas before people get confused about what's what.
Right.
It would also.
If anyone gets confused, they don't deserve to go and see either film.
No, indeed. It would also give Rogue One a strong second week if suddenly they said, we're now going to put the episode 8 teaser on the start of Rogue One. So if you'd already seen it, which you would have done by then, you'll be pulled back to the box office. I suspect no Star Wars fan's going to sit still for that. Being treated like that. Yes.
You'll know this better than I do. Is that common for them to set a second to switch out the trailer reel midway through a run?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
It'll be revised weekly.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and it will be, and it's always.
Sometimes a couple of hours before your friends go in the cinema.
Yeah, that has been. I hear that's a thing that happens.
Sorry.
It's
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think this is unlikely. I think that it's very interesting, and I heard James talking about. Actually, I think it was Corey talking about James's theory over on Tumbling Saber that this might be about TV air dates for the trailers rather than the theatrical release for the trailers.
Yes.
And that fits with what my initial reaction was to this, was that the press or the promotional schedule for The Force Awakens was so successful, why on earth wouldn't they follow that for episode 8, which would put a title and a trailer reveal in November this year? Which gives people enough time. And let's look at it this way. We're all treating the audience like they're brain dead, and they're going to think, you show them any Star Wars and they're going to go, oh, that's the one that's coming out at Christmas. No, that's not how it works. By the time December rolls around, everyone's going to know what Rogue One is, and when you show them episode 8 and you show them Luke Skywalker, they're going to go, oh, that's a different film.
Yeah.
It can work in their favour as much as it can work against them.
I think by that point they absolutely can do that, yeah. But I think it would need to...
the 2017 date on it as well, Christmas 2017. Nobody's that stupid that they think, oh, that's the one I've booked tickets for.
No.
So I think we're not giving the viewing audience enough credit here. They are going to.
I still
understand.
maintain that to rely on people knowing Rogue One is set outside the timeline is to risk turning them off.
Well, that's what I'll write as a standalone film.
Yeah, so I've talked about before. It was Celebration. They said, we're expecting the fans to know the difference. I'm like, you shouldn't, because not everybody follows it as tightly as people like we do. It's not. It's a recipe for. Well, so it's certainly a recipe for some bad press, but where people come out kind of not disappointed but confused and thus annoyed.
There's language being used though, like the rebellion built on hope and all this sort of stuff, and using Darth Vader now in your visuals is starting to key people to the fact that this might not just be a sci-fi film set in the same universe, but it does dovetail neatly. And we've all seen the Death Star on screen now. It does dovetail neatly into New Hope. Yeah. And it will work differently to what's going to happen in a year or so when we're having the same conversations about Han Solo, because this is Han Solo that we're dealing with. So we know precisely what we're getting here. This is their hardest sell yet, Rogue One. And it's the hardest sell they'll ever have, because it's the first time they've done it. the next time, even if they go back and they tell the story of how they got the plans to the second Death Star, they're going to be building on the good faith that they've earned through Rogue One. This is the hardest sell they've got. I think there'll be enough product recognition by the end of this year for Rogue One. People will understand what it is. They'll understand where it's set in canon.
Yeah.
And then they can drop in November, Episode 8, just to reaffirm, when you go to the cinema in December, you're not going to see Finn and Rey.
Mm-hmm.
That will come next year. And it can work. They can work to complement each other.
Yeah. I think, the Vader thing was definitely a step in the right direction for framing it to put him at the end. Because obviously you go, oh, well, he can't be about because he's gone from Episode 6.
Right, we've got one more. Well, no, we've got two more bits to talk about. So we got. Paul, did you have anything you wanted to say about this trailer thing before we move on?
No. I mean, I've been listening to what you'd be saying, regarding confusion. But anybody that's confused, I'm sorry. I don't. If they sit there with their mouths open, drooling, then too bad.
Now, I can't swing with that, Paul. It's just, to me, that's just that kind of, oh, I'm a bigger fan, so.
Not at all. I mean, come on. Most of the people that know Star Wars even remotely will understand what's going on. Anybody that wants to go and see the film, period, would have done at least a little bit of research, because I don't know much about all the other films in the world, but I do check up on them before I go.
Yeah,
that's fair. But I mean, that's not true of. I mean, from experience, that's not true of every cinema goer. It's just not.
Well, I'm sorry. I've got no patience with them.
Yeah, like I say, I'm quite happy to say that the Vader inclusion in the trailer is a very much a step in the right direction, because it does frame it in the time period of it must be while Darth Vader is alive.
Look at the poster, look at the title. If you can't work it out, I'm not in the same ballpark. I'm sorry, I don't get it.
No, see, again, like I say, I just can't agree. I think it's not every your standard moviegoer doesn't know what the Rogue reference is. They just don't.
It says underneath a Star Wars story. It doesn't say Star Wars episode what.
Yeah, but it's about chronology of release as well. Obviously, the prequels are a different beast because they're a known entity. But I do know I've spoken to people who've watched the films and who originally got confused that the prequels were the other way around and stuff. I've dealt with those people.
I don't know
they're perfectly intelligent people. It's just they got confused because they didn't follow it as tightly as other people do.
But that, I mean, that's still now nearly 20 years ago. Now, surely people have caught up now, for crying out loud.
But these are films a year apart, though. We're talking about films where there were 15 years difference and people were still confused. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if today.
I have to disagree with you labelling them as very intelligent people as well.
I said perfectly intelligent. I didn't say very.
I don't think this audience that we're all afraid of exists.
I'm not afraid of them.
No, I don't think. Well,
I pity the fools.
Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be people wandering into a cinema and just going, "Oh, Star Wars," buying a ticket and then coming out going, "Where was my Finn and Rey?" I don't think that exists.
I think had they not put Vader in the trailer, that was a risk. I genuinely do.
I really wish they had one.
I think now that Vader's been in the trailer,
I
think
and the Death Star, and
that's significantly less of a risk.
There are other touchstones to. There are other touchstones carefully placed to hint at the time frame. Mon Mothma, Death Star, and Vader. Vader being the biggest one.
Mon Mothma, Death Star, Vader.
But
fine with that.
I think there's an audience there for sure. I think my parents probably, and maybe even Lisa's brother, actually. I showed him a trailer for Rogue One a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Oh, is this like, what's the deal with this?" And I just had to explain where it's at. So there's your audience there. The people that aren't plugged into this stuff like we are, like Paul said, they're going to ask a question. They're going to do the research and find out what it is. Because if you see a Star Wars trailer and you don't see Finn and Rey within the first couple of seconds, you're going to question what that is, right? Everyone's sophisticated enough to know that if you're watching a trailer for something...
Look at the cast list.
The audience that we're worried about doesn't really exist.
I think it's certainly, if it does still exist, it's a very small, and like I say, the fact that the inclusion of Vader and the Death Star makes it even smaller.
Yeah, they are an audience that go, "Oh, I'm going to go and see that Star Wars film. and then they'll look into it. No one is going to come out, and if anyone comes out and puts a video on Instagram saying there was no Finn or Ray in that film, they're playing up. They're doing it on purpose because one's going to come out of that screening.
They look a bit like me, you'll know.
Oh right, okay.
I can't believe it.
In blackface, Rob. I dare you.
Really? I don't think I can possibly justify that.
Yeah, that would be a nice way out of the Talk Star Wars family, wouldn't it?
It'd be a way out of a lot of things, Mark. Gainful employment.
The last piece of. Oh no, here we go. Mark Hamill.
Yes.
Oh, he had a shave, didn't he?
He had a shave.
Did have a shave.
He had a shave this week.
Yes.
This was a highly celebrated shave that made Hugh Jackman's look ridiculous.
Did what?
Hugh Jackman rapped on Wolverine, didn't he? And he shaved his mutton chops off this week, but Mark came along and just trumped it with his beard shaving. But it was what was in the hashtags of the tweet that accompanied that video that gave a lot away. So basically he said goodbye to the contractually obligated beard, at least until episode 9. So he's confirmed that Luke will be back.
He certainly,
in some measure.
Indeed.
Yeah, he's certainly intimated at that, hasn't he?
It was probably the safest thing he could have done.
Yes.
Because we all know he could still die in 8 and come back for 9, right?
Absolutely. He's not an idiot. Mark
He's
Hamill.
not an idiot, no.
Smart dude.
He must have been given some kind of permissive option to do this, surely. I mean, that's quite highbrow.
Yeah, I would think it's
not
probably
necessarily,
vetted.
because I mean, like we've said about before, if there's one film franchise where death is not an obstacle to being in a movie, it's Star Wars, and especially for the only remaining fully trained light side Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah, if this was Carrie Fisher.
Well, that's it. You know, if she
different.
said, "I'm taking the beard off," and I mean, I
it'll look good.
Careful where you go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain amount of distinguishment that comes from a beard. You know, James at Tumbling Saber can confirm because he's a
That's not a
distinguished
beard.
looking chap.
That is an epic beard.
I was going to say
Space
that is
station.
Well played.
probably on that scale. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Let's move on to MakingStarWars.net ran a piece this week suggesting that we might revisit Rey's vision from The Force Awakens. We spoke about this briefly earlier in episode 8. I really like what I'm hearing here, and I suspect that there's something to it as well. So they're saying that, well, the way I'm kind of reading between the lines, but I suspect that Rey will be encouraged to or trained how to access these visions to glean a little bit more information. So I wonder if we might actually see this expanded scene of Luke and Vader fighting on Bespin from Empire Strikes Back that was cut from the, as far as I understand it, the shot was the scene was shot for The Force Awakens and then left on a cutting room floor, so we might get to see that. And we might see expanded, certainly what we mentioned earlier, some expanded footage of her vision of Luke's school. So we might get that recontextualized if we do see the Knights of Ren wipe the school out in Luke's absence.
The only thing I'll be wary of is they can approach that in one of two ways. If we think about the Takodana vision, and it's specifically the bit about the sort of, you know, what looks like dead Padawans and all that around the scene, either she can be going back into it as a part of her training to kind of refine her skill in understanding what happened before. It could be accidental. As she gets more powerful, she starts to have more vivid visions. And that, I mean, we've talked about before how it could be that she might start to distrust Luke if she learns that he knew about her past and didn't kept it from her. And, or if he had some involvement in it, she might start to distrust him. She might stumble across it in that form where she might be sort of training up and then she's becoming more powerful. So she's having the same vision, but it's more vivid. You know, and she sees more every time as she learns more, she sees more in the vision.
Okay, so it might be something that she's doing on her own.
Yeah, absolutely. And she might be sort of curious and trying to learn more about the Vision without his knowledge, without his approval. Or maybe he does know, but he's he's sort of staying quiet because he wants to see what happens.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So there's lots of scope for interesting things for that. The only thing I'd be wary of is, I think what I don't want it to become is like an Inception style thing where they sort of go into a vision and wander around looking for stuff.
No.
You know what I mean? Or a bit like that scene in The Matrix where they're walking through a crowd and then he turns around and it's the woman in the red dress has turned into an agent. That sort of thing. I don't want anything like that because that'll come across a bit sort of naff.
I can imagine it being a little bit like, do you remember when Luke was on Dagobah and he was training with Yoda and he's doing the handstand and he's talking about Yoda saying things you will see, the future, the past, old friends long gone. Mm-hmm. And he starts, Luke's obviously overcome at that point with visions of the immediate future in Bespin.
Yeah.
And it puts him off and he collapses, doesn't he? Loses his balance.
Yeah.
I could see this being something like that where Luke's sort of training Rey and as she's training, she's getting these flashes. So instead of it being an Inception type thing where they're walking around her vision, which I agree with you would be totally cheesy. She could be getting these flashes and Luke could start to guide her through it. So, try and focus, try and expand on these things, but all the while she's doing something else. Mm-hmm. Like swinging from vines or climbing up. She's a rock climber, haven't we? We've seen her doing that. So she could be scaling some sheer face on Arc 2 with him constantly sort of drilling her. Try and see. That was the wrong choice of words. Try and see. We're very, very close to the After Dark. Constantly pushing her to try and challenge her to sort of learn more from these visions. Maybe that's where she sees something about Luke that
maybe
would challenge her or challenge her faith in him. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I almost, but in my mind, I kind of like the idea of it seeing it coming in a way that we see visually, a bit like. Have you seen Event Horizon?
Yeah.
They get the really, really, really quick flashes of horrendous things happening to his crew.
Yeah.
Maybe we get something along those lines that gets more clear as the film progresses, as she gets more powerful. So she's sort of, she's kind of training, and you start to see flashes of scenes from the Vision in her vision, and we kind of see that. And as she gets more powerful, they refine and they sort of slow down, and everything becomes, kind of crystal clear. I could see that working really well, actually.
What was the main point of the movie, in your opinion, that gave it the title The Force Awakens?
The fact that, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
That's a really good question. And I'm not sure we'll really know until the next one.
Her visions are massive imbalances of the Force going one way or another that she's actually seeing and feeling and experiencing.
Right.
And maybe that's what the visions are.
Well, I suppose, and it could be that, we've said frequently that we think Rey's using the Force anyway when she's scaling those huge...
But that's why she was scared of the dream. She's still able to do that, and these visions are able to come to her because that's how strong she may well be.
Yeah.
And that's why. But she was still scared of it if she had control over it. But I'm just wondering if she's able to see peaks and troughs, if you like.
Maybe,
in what you might consider Force-based events and so on. So obviously, if Luke had lost lots of Padawan or whatever it may well be, and the Knights of Ren's doing literally a mind sweep on the situation, she's supposed to see this and feel this and so on, and that's what the visions are. Simply her.
I kind of interpret the film's title, The Force Awakens, rather than being the Force. Rather than the Force being the object that is awakening, it's the actor. It's awakening somebody in their power. Because when Snoke is talking to Ren, he says there has been an awakening.
Yeah.
But it's not the Force that's awakening, because the Force has still been there, unless, which I don't think is true, Ren has no Force sensitivity at all, which I don't believe.
No, look at what we see him do.
Yeah, but you see him do that, but there are ways and means, I would imagine, to do that stuff.
What, holding that blaster?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just light, isn't it?
Paralyzing Finn.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? If
Poe
it's-
and
No.
yeah,
It would have to be weird magnets. But there's your episode title, Mark.
Weird magnets.
The weird magnets awaken.
There we go.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that. Like I say, I'm kind of steering away from that. But I think the Force is the one doing the awakening rather than being awakened. And I think it's awakening Rey. Because Luke, I would imagine that Luke has been, he may have shut himself off from the rest of the galaxy, but I don't imagine he shut himself off from the Force. The Force hasn't been asleep for 6 years.
No.
But it hasn't awakened anybody for that time.
Yeah, it's a presence. It is a presence within the Force that everyone's seen, isn't it? And that's her.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And it's the Force finding somebody to awaken. That's where the title. To me, that's what the title kind of signifies.
Yeah, that we're not going to know until the next one, are we? Whether that
we may never know. That may have been just a J.J. Abrams like, I thought it sounded cool. Yeah, and it was better than my original one, which was the weird magnets awaken,
which is this podcast style.
Exactly.
Okay, that's us done for this week. There's a couple of things that didn't have any news. Han Solo, next year's celebration, nothing worth.
Have we talked about Donald Glover yet?
No, we haven't. I think
we mentioned him briefly last week.
Yeah, really quick one for me on that one. Before they mentioned his name, I couldn't picture anybody as Lando. Since they have, I can't picture anybody.
You can't picture anyone else. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I cannot picture anybody else but him.
I watched The Martian 2 days ago, and he came in the room, and all I'm seeing is a guy with a cloak. Really cool.
Yeah.
Stapler in his hand.
In my opinion, he's the weakest part of The Martian, unfortunately. But he is one of the strongest things in everything else I've seen him in. So I'm on board with it.
He's our favourite scene.
The weakest thing in The Martian, I think. Yeah. But that's not saying much. I mean, The Martian is a fantastic movie.
It's like saying that Episode 2 is the weakest Star Wars film. It's still
which is
a
another
great
thing
film.
I've said in the past.
I agree, but I still think it's a great movie because it's a Star Wars movie.
You can't quote me on that.
Okay.
Okay, let's move out of this. Thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. If you'd like to support what we do, don't forget to stay tuned because I'm going to tell a story after the end credits.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not going anywhere.
I was talking to the people that are just about to press stop on their iPhones and iPods. All right. Thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. If you'd like to support what we do here, then head over to talkstarwars.co.uk/support, where you can become a TSW sponsor, just like Ads did, by giving as little as £1 per month securely via PayPal. In doing so, you will immediately qualify for VIP status and you'll be whisked away to register your email address. You will then get access to an exclusive VIP feed, which will give you previews, news about what we're up to here at TSW, fun downloads. You'll get access to our series of audio commentaries for the Star Wars movies and beyond. You'll get those as a priority. They will hit the podcast feed somewhere later down the line. Failing that, you can simply support us by liking and following us on our various social networks and sharing all of our posts with your friends. That being said, gentlemen, where can people find you between episodes of the podcast?
Go on, Rob.
You go first. Yours is quicker.
It's not because I still don't know what it's called. I am on Twitter. I am at moviescore_, all one word. I'm also movie-score.com. I'm directly online. Just basically news aggregate of all sorts of things. Movie Score. To be honest, there's not a lot at the moment. I do apologise. The site is quiet. That's because the news is actually kind of quiet. Actually, little tidbit. Johan Johansson just got Blade Runner 2, didn't he? Which is kind of cool. So yeah, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, that's where you'll find me. Thanks.
Excellent, Rob.
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade Vision, and I've got a blog that I run with a few friends called Emotionally 14. The main website's emotionally14.com, and there's a Facebook, Twitter, podcasts, YouTube, the lot.
Wow, that was nice and short.
Yeah, I've been working on it.
You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter. I'm at TalkStarWars, and you can find links to everything that's just been mentioned hyperlinked in our show notes. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes if you haven't done so already. Write whatever you want and I'll read it as long as it's not hate-filled or full of swearing. Thanks again. Oh, and don't forget, check out our brethren over at the Star Wars Commonwealth, Tumbling Saber and Generation X-Wing, also hyperlinked in the show notes. We will see you next week. May the Force be with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Right. Let's get into this little story. I'll be brief.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not sure I can use this chap's name.
Okay.
Because he'd asked me to sort of keep this on the download, but I don't care.
Right.
You recording?
I am recording, yeah. Last year, when The Force Awakens was coming out, I was contacted by somebody. I'm going to be very, very careful because I don't want to get anybody into trouble.
All right.
I was contacted by somebody who had a terminally ill gentleman in their life who desperately wanted to see The Force Awakens.
Okay.
Now, I know a guy who works at Disney. He's a pretty significant name in their marketing department. The gentleman's name is Paul. I'm gonna hold his second name back just because I don't want to step out of line. I reached out to him and said, look, this guy is seriously ill. All he wants to do is see The Force Awakens. It was very much like the whole Daniel thing. And this guy, Paul, couldn't do enough for this gentleman who was terminally ill. He provided him with tickets for a film, offered to lay on a limo, which couldn't be done for logistical reasons. And not only that, but he sent him a big bag of Force Awakens memorabilia, a lightsaber, mugs, toys, posters, everything you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
Now, the guy went and saw the film. He loved the film, all on Disney's dime. And sadly, shortly after, passed away, unfortunately.
I think I remember reading about this.
Did you really?
I feel like I did, yeah.
It was... I hadn't said anything because Paul, who no longer works for Disney, now works somewhere else, said to me he didn't really want it to be known. They wanted to do this wonderful thing for this man, but they didn't want it to be perceived...
Because it's a wonderful thing, yeah.
They didn't want it to be perceived as a promotional thing or trying to hog any limelight or get any press off the back of it. And I've sat on it for all this time because, of course, I understand their motivation. They just wanted to do something nice for this man. They just wanted to do something generous for this man. Yeah. And not just Paul and not just Disney, but everybody that took a part in making this happen for him. There was a number of people involved. They all just did it out of the kindness of their hearts. They didn't do it because they wanted anybody. They didn't do it because they wanted any brownie points or any ink out of it, you know. And I just wonder how many times this happens.
It's interesting, because funny enough, I was just looking it up because I was like, where did I read it? And I was reading it up, and it's actually a guy from Texas, so it's a completely different bloke. Yeah. So it does happen more than once.
It does happen. And there are a few that get momentum and people jump on it and they spin it and they use it for whatever they want. And honestly, hand on heart, that's not what I'm doing here. That's why I thought I'd put it after the end credits because, I didn't have any real part in this at all.
Right.
This was
all put them in touch, right?
I was just passing along a message, but it was all Disney. It was all Paul at Disney, and the people that brought it to my attention that did everything, and nobody was interested. I said, "You got to let me put something about this on the site. You got to let me just point out what a wonderful thing you've done." No,
and they weren't having any of it.
No one wanted anything to do with it.
That's quite nice, isn't it?
So rest assured that there are wonderful people out there doing extraordinarily generous things, thoughtful things for people, and it's not being done for press.
It's a more altruistic kind of thing, isn't it? You know, because obviously there's debate about, you know, how much is true altruism, but something like that's got to be done more for more altruistic reasons than your standard kind of Make-A-Wish type thing. Because obviously
there are no unselfish deeds, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, not
to
to belittle what Make-A-Wish do, because obviously they do phenomenal work. And actually, I have a friend who works for them, who works with them rather, and they're fantastic. They do a wonderful thing. I think it's amazing what they do for these poor kids who've become ill through no fault of their own. I think some of the stuff they do is incredible, and the people who kind of not only the people who organise it, but also the people who fulfil these requests, regardless of whether it's kind of publicised or not, doing an amazing thing. But it is, it's nice to kind of know that there are people who are doing that stuff just because it feels like a good thing to do, and it's a nice thing.
Just because it is the right thing to do, and it doesn't cost anybody anything, and all it does is bring happiness. So.
Totally.
Yeah. So I was
Sorry, Paul, what were you going to say? I felt like I cut you off.
I don't know if I was.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Well, that's it.
I'd rather check.
That is the little story. I just wanted to get that out there.
That's nice.
Okay, let's get the hell out of here. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye bye.